2001, and I'm shifting forward. But yeah, 2001, I had got my first associate degree in ministry, and it was still more than two. So I decided, and I spoke to other brothers. One of the brothers that happened to be a native of Oakland. I was from Los Angeles. Was a native of Oakland. And one thing we do inside is we try to keep those of us who see that it's not the end of the world for us. We try to keep up on the current events and what's going on in the outside world where our loved ones exist. Because with our hope really lies within our loved ones and outside the prison. In 2001, Oakland hit 121 murders. And we were shocked by that. And we invited key people within the community to come in and talk to us and ask, and we asked them, what can we do from that side? One of the people came in with Dorsey Nunn. He was sitting on the side, so he's always been like a mentor to me. And we created a program, me and other lifers, because I was serving a life term, me and two other lifers created a program called No More Tears. And No More Tears was supposed to be a response to the violence that was going on, not just in Oakland, although Oakland was our focal point, but that was going on throughout California. And our objective was to, since we were all lifers and that we had a political apparatus at that time through Gray Davis, Duke Mage, and Pete Wilson that said lifers would never come home. From 1983 all the way up to like 2005, they held true to that until Gray Davis was forced out of office and he released the first women that were in prison, should have never been in prison, spousal abuse. Those were the first lifers to get out. And then Arnold took over. And when Arnold took over, he started seeing some of the things we were doing inside and found that, I can beat around the bush. The whole thing was the state couldn't afford the house, so they started looking for those who would be pliable to let out. And we were deemed, most of us, rehabilitated by him, and he let us out. Our objective in No More Tears was to catch the individuals who were coming in, young men who were coming in for lesser crimes, who we knew was perpetrating, or at least at the center of a lot of the violence that's going on. And we wanted to do a mind-changing thing with them and send them back out. Just like we believe that crime and violence became an infected disease upon our community, perpetrated by, we believe, the government when they took our black leadership. And we had no more structure within the community, and a lot of young men went to their own ways, and we wanted to twist that around. So we wanted to contaminate our society with a positive attitude through these young men. We vowed that the first one of us to get out, these lifers, we would bring that concept out here. I was the first one to get out, so I brought out the ripple effect. No More Tears, the ripple effect. I'm now in. I started off in North Richmond, working and mentoring with young men in North Richmond. I was working at a YGC over in San Francisco Juvenile Hall. I'm now in 150th Alameda County. And I also, in doing the work, was invited to join the staff of All of Us Are None. And that's why I sit today.
Hard for me to talk sitting down, but I'll do my best. My name is Ida McCrae. I'm born and raised in San Francisco, and it's been a while since I've really talked about my incarceration because it was just a chapter in my life, a long chapter. I got 20 years for air piracy back in the early 70s. And in that, it was a long journey in terms of being a fugitive for 16 years, and I wound up doing 10 years right up here in Dublin. But the biggest pain that I endured was the loss and separation of my children. And in that, I was very fortunate. I was fortunate because I had a mother who was willing to give it all, bring the children in no matter what. And in that, I didn't lose custody, but I did lose them in knowing who I was, knowing what I'm about. And the other part is because of, and I won't say patriarchy and white supremacy and all the isms that separate us from each other. And the mother is viewed in a very negative light when she is away from the children, more so, much more so than the father. Fathers have permission to be away, and I'm not saying it means the feelings are different, but this society, it says, okay, you can be a traveling salesman, you can be in the services, or you can be in prison, but when the mother's gone, it's a different type of reaction children have. I remember my children saying that they would lie, they didn't want to say that, their mother was incarcerated, because the other children would make fun of them, and even one family wouldn't allow their child to play with my son because his mother was in prison. And my mother, being older, she would go to the schools and they would hide and run for her because all the rest of the kids had young mothers who were there. So in that, they go through something that it's almost irreplaceable. I'm saying even 20 years later, I've been out probably 14 years now, and in that I still don't have a good relationship with most of my children. I was the mother of 5 children, and I talk to other mothers who've done a lot of time, and I'm not the only one who feels this deep bitterness that the children had experienced from what they had to go through. It's irreparable, almost totally irreparable. But I am hopeful that maybe one day when they get a little older and stop having someone else to blame, that they can see that, sometimes you get cards and you do what you have. Mm-hmm. And in that, I think I did a very, very good job, simply because I was able to build a network or community around them that's still present today. And in that, I said, well, if there was one thing I could do, I would want them to be educated. I was able to organize someone to pay for my daughter's education in a private school while I was incarcerated. And, I just asked the community to give where they could, because I didn't need anything. I'm fine, but they are the ones who needed development in ways that I couldn't actually assist them with, and which was really painful because I love teaching. That's what I like to do. So anyway, I say I've been. So when I left, I didn't know what I was going to do. When I was inside, I met this young man right next to me. He was younger then. He had all black hair. And he came and through an invitation and talked to all the women inside. And that was Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, which preempts all of us and all the other organizations. I just want to say that. And in that, yes, things tend to branch, but to me, Legal Services for Prisoners with Children is a tree. And the branches that come from that are many. And one of them is my organization, which is Families with the Future, and the other projects that they hold up on the tree. And in being able to meet Dorsey and the people who came there through, it helped bridge connections to the outside world, because the last thing you want to be is isolated and unable to make connections, because there's connections and support systems that will help you get through. And I just want to, I was thinking when we were talking about this earlier, and they said, oh, usually you're wiped out when you've been there, they have this little box. They got 2 different laws. I have a friend who's a very, very good friend of mine. Has a record like 15 times as long as me. She went for a job, got it, and when they looked at her, they said, oh, well, you've done your time. But you know what the difference was? She was white. They got laws for some that they can use it as a barrier. They have people who are not talking about their incarceration, even if they did get incarcerated. They're not talking about it, who are in various sectors of society who got a break. But when they want to, they can put that little, oh, you've been incarcerated, you got a don't want you. But they blind the eye of who they want to, and that shows the white supremacy in this society as who gets a pass and who does not. They use it as a lever to discriminate. Not that you have a AA or a master's degree or this, that, and this happened 10, 20, when there's another person inside you and a different mentality. It's a way to keep the prison industries, follow the money chain. Yeah. Isn't that why they brought us Africans here? Yeah. All right? And in that, for the exploitation, for the wealth enrichments, and we have done that. And I was just thinking, a lot of, in San Francisco, I was born and raised in San Francisco, then it was like black population was 11, 12%. We made it great. Now you can't even live there. Why? Because they already did the job. And so now the job is they want our children to be swept up into these mass areas of prison industry. And in that, everybody going down. Because, when we do things that to the greatest of intensity and greatness of, and in that we have more people in the pool. There's a sister talking a little earlier, and she was talking about discrimination, and I really feel, I understand it from a deep level. My daddy left the South because people his age were hanging from trees, all right? And then when it came out here to work because the word got around there were jobs here in the West. So my mother came from Texas and my daddy came from Louisiana. And in having those jobs in the West, they performed and they built up this area to make it as great as it is, all right? And in that, once so many of us were no longer needed, every little thing became a crime. And I really attribute so much to the mass incarceration of people of color, to the industry and not being able to be a part of the industry because you're not needed, because they can go overseas, they can go somewhere else. And I just really know and believe, and I'm thankful to be part of so many organizations that are working through All of Us and None to eliminate the discriminations. But I know individually employers have pulled, they can turn the eye on who they want to, and they can invite in who they want to. Thank you.
If I sit here and just relax, I will start crying because this space represents almost like full circle for me. Because I also was convicted of a crime. And I was on my way to Doggy Diners down there on East 14th and 98th from East Palo Alto. I never knew that the road that I traveled would take me in so many different places. I've been in this building before too. I brought Dorothy Gaines and Kimber Smith in this building once they got presidential clemency under the drug war, and they came in, and it was the first time they had an opportunity to speak to a black audience. And they came here, and right behind me, I seen Dorothy Gaines pull off her shoes because she had the least of the education, but she had a greater commitment to black folks than most people knew about. And it was the first time that I seen her ground herself. I think I got the greatest job in the universe. I get to see weeds grow into flowers in a real way, on a real practical way. So it's like, if you see me run out right to this right here, it's like I'm not supposed to be here today. I'm supposed to be like washing the dog, washing the clothes, because I got a woman at home that haven't seen me for 3 weekends. And at a certain point, she still got some juice, you know what I'm saying? So like if you see me book real fast, it's because I like to keep my relationship. So she got some juice, and she's like, hey. You've been gone a lot, I know the revolution is good, but I'm here too. And if I haven't said, my name is Dorsey Nunn, and I'm the first of my kind, and I think we got things in common in this room, because I happen to think that Muslims is the most discriminated group and the most profiled group that we can look at right now. But we have in common is 9/11. And that 9/11 is significant within the community that I'm from, because as a result of 9/11, they built an industry around background checks. So it wasn't like it was just Muslims. They might like, we hate you because you're Muslim. They laid us off because we had felonies. It wasn't like they just hated us. It was like they hated us and acted on it. It wasn't just simple a simple feeling that they had. So on 9/12, 9/13, I started getting phone calls about people who could no longer work at the airport, who had mortgages in tow. I started getting phone calls from folks who was apprehensive at applying for jobs, because what used to be an ugly secret was no longer going to be an ugly secret. You know, so along the way, when I say we have these things in common, when I go to the airport, I get as paranoid as anybody else in the room. You know, and the people who I seem to have employed real close, like watching Aaliyah grow, I got somebody named Hamdia Cooks that work in my office, who's my administrative director, who's also a Muslim. So it ain't like, you know, these people that I hang out with every day. When we go through the airport, it's like we sneaking around like we slaves, you know. Because at any minute somebody could ask, do you have documents? You know, do you need to come out your clothes? Do you need to unwrap? Do you need to do something special? You know, and Hamdia's man is named Fred Muhammad, which really don't serve us well when we travel. You're like, come on, Fred. You was born in San Francisco. Once in your life could you been Jones?
One more time.
Just one more time for me. Just at least let us get past the metal detector. Oh, I'm sorry. But I was on my way to Doggy Diners and got caught up. I went in the store to buy, they didn't even have 40 ounces. I think they was 32 ounces then. I was going in to get some Coke 45 and some zigzags. And got waylaid. I didn't never get to where I was going to for 11 years. You know, and what my crime essentially was, that I was 19, went in, and racism broke out in the store. And what came about as a result of a person denying us services was a murder beef. Didn't go in with the intent to commit robbery, although I was a robber. Went in with the intent to cop some beer and some zigzags. What my punishment was, because they offered me a deal which was a year in county jail if I cooperated, or a life sentence if I didn't cooperate. And what I wind up getting was a life sentence. Some parts of what I got to do, so I remember Ida a different way. I remember Ida through her mail coming into the office, and she never asked for services for herself. She asked for services for her mother who was losing her home. That's what I remember. So when you take me to your home and I see the beautiful home that you done built, it's like watching the flower bloom. So like when you showed me around your house, that's what I remember. What I remember about Jerry, and there was 6 of us in the office, and his hiring committee was all formerly incarcerated people. And when we were hiring Jerry, we stopped the process at a certain point because we recognized that we were the only people in the country that was a hiring committee that was comprised of only formerly incarcerated people. And we were getting ready to hire another one of us. Half of my staff is formerly incarcerated people. So when I go to work, I already know the people who get there first is generally formerly incarcerated, and the people who leave there last is generally formerly incarcerated. So that myth about we're lazy, we shiftless, it's just stuff that they say.
That's right.
And it's not necessarily what it is.
Gotcha.
So when I say that I'm the first of my kind, I'm not only the first of my kind that heads a legal service organization, I also manage a budget of $1 million. So it's not just I'm the first of a kind in a whole bunch of ways. So like when you look at some of the work that we do, it's not just small work. So when we talk about some of the concept of have you been convicted of a felony, we got a campaign called the Ban the Box campaign, and we have removed that question off the application for state employment in 6 states, 35 jurisdictions. So it's not like we just standing around saying, woe is me. Some of us are fighting back. In a real fundamental and strategic way. So it's not just that question of what will we do. If you go to FIPCM movement,
FICP movement.
yeah, you will see us walking across the Pettis Bridge. Because just this year, we had almost 60 people marching across the Pettis Bridge, recommitting themselves to a civil rights movement that seemed to be a little bit slow. I could say last week I had 300 people from 21 different states and 2 different countries hanging out in the middle of Watts while we talked about adopting a national platform that speak to the issue of being incarcerated and convicted people. And we start talking about that we want to end structural discrimination. We start talking about our rights of the children and have access. We start talking about different stuff, and having 300 people in the room says, this is the language we start using. So like when you start hearing us talk about we formerly incarcerated people, we are doing other stuff. So anytime you hear that come out my mouth, you can hear me changing the language in the context in which we exist. I'm not saying that I'm an offender. I'm not naming myself an offense. I'm naming myself a person. So anytime that you hear us start moving like this, the transition is as significant as going from being Negro to being black. Theoretically, intellectually, and in terms of language. So some parts of what we're building is already like stuff that I know that you may not even be able to see. I will change the texture and the context in which you exist in this country.
Wow.
All right.
I already know that I got the ability to do that.
Yes.
So it's not even a question of when it's going to happen. It's already happening. So when we sit down 300 strong in the room, what we said was, we're going to put 1 million new voters into play.
Yes.
So we ain't even talking about little things anymore. Our visions and our dreams are larger than people even thought we had the capacity to think about. So it's not that way any longer. So some parts of who I am, I'm a person that got people walking around giving out applications to get free bicycles for Christmas right now. I'm the person that got people packing up, getting ready to go into Alabama in another couple of days. So I'm that person right now. So like along the way, what I can say is that my trip to prison, however painful it was, what it produced was an expert in a whole bunch of areas. And I claimed that expertise.
Yeah,
so at a certain point, I grew up and I was raised in East Palo Alto. But at one point, I was the largest employer in my city, probably within this decade.
That's right.
So it's not like that's, So some parts of the stuff that saddens me, because I got to speak to the saddened part of it, is what happened when I meet Jerry and he's on fire and he wants to change the whole universe. And I come out to the community and sometimes I meet other brothers that seem like their spirits and their confidence is broken. It saddens me to see that. So that's how come it's not like Jerry did me a favor or I'm doing Jerry a favor by Jerry coming to work at Legal Services, Jerry did me a favor by taking the job because he wasn't a broken person.
Yeah.
You know, Hamdia isn't a broken person. Aaliyah and Ida ain't broken people. So what happens when we come out and we on fire about changing a whole set of circumstances
Go ahead.
and run into a group of people that the only thing they want to do is get high, work for somebody else? What happens when it's that way? So like some parts of when I'm pulling from this group of people that have been incarcerated, I'm grabbing the spirits of people who have yet to be broken.
Yes.
You know, and what saddens me is sometimes that I ride around the community and I see people who have. And it's our job to make sure that if we have some strength, to share that strength with other people. And so we can all heal in a real particular way. So legal services for prisons with children, if I was to trace that history, and Jerry said first they released battered women who had killed their abusers. That apparatus was developed in my office. And it was developed, and before they even had sustained probably their first release, we paid for the program for almost 12 years before the first one got out. And like I said, I was on my way to get loaded.
It got really loaded.
What happens when something happens to you and it ruins your ability to even get high? See, because the reality of it is that I haven't been high in 21 years and 60 days, haven't smoked a cigarette in 21 years and 60 days. So at a certain point, my commitment to what I had learned, I was the type of person that would go to get loaded with other people, and they said, "Man, you talk too much. Get out. We don't even want your money. Just leave." You know, because I get, you know, how they say, like he used to say in the old church, I get hit by the Holy Ghost. Hit the pipe and woo! And start talking politics. And the reality of it is that at a certain point, I start functioning on a different level, and I stop getting high. The other reality is that beyond not getting high, it is hanging out with Aaliyah. When she went to Sacramento, it was like, "You're only gonna work 6 more months." How many years have you been working?
Yeah. Almost 6
Yeah.
years, almost 6 years.
This was a 6-month relationship. So when I get to see her do this stuff, because as y'all building this thing, she's talking to me. And I know what's important. So like when she said, "Could you come over?" I could not come over because she just went to Los Angeles and organized 300 people to come into Los Angeles. Could not come. You know, I might need to invite her over to help with that dog and that woman problem that I got brewing. But legal services for prisons with children has 3 primary functions. We focus on rights, release, and reunification. The rights that we fight for is the full restoration of our civil and our human rights. The release that we talk about is when we fight for battered women who killed their abusers to be released back into the community. Because like some of us been told, each one of our sisters, if a man hits you, right? Some of us been told them that.
Take him out.
What happens when they act on what we told them? That's what I seen that was different. If he start beating you, you know. I didn't, you know, because I don't know if y'all got sisters and daughters and all the rest of that stuff. I be saying, "God, don't bring that to me because I don't want to go back to prison." Take it up. I got bail.
See if we could give you maybe just one more.
Yeah, let me wrap this up. And when we talk about the rights, we talk about the restoration of rights. When we talk about the release, we generally talk about the release of people coming out of prison. And sometimes you see stuff in the community and you won't know it's us. Because within this community, probably over the course of the last 2 years, we didn't have fines and fees forgiven for probably over $1 million in this community. So it's not like we just abstract. So when you see clean slate and we start talking about fine and fees forgiveness, that was generated through our office also. So like, you know, because it seems like the bill collectors chase us longer than the police. So, you know, so like we need some ability to do some of that stuff. When we talk about the reunification, we start talking about how do we reunify with the community in a way that's understandable. So when we say ban the box, most people say jobs. What I need to tell you that there's enough people functioning in our community without employment. It's not a question of jobs, it's a question of economy. And they don't think that I think in economy. They think I'm only trying to get a job for Ida as opposed to actually building an economy that sustains life in our community, which is a larger question. They never think about us having conversations or producing this stuff after you've been hit by the whip, shackled, chain, and drug.
Right.
Some of us think about the larger part of this question, and we think about it in real ways. So some parts of what I'm saying to you, next time you hear them say ban the box, say economy. Next time you hear somebody having a handcuff clipped on their wrist and being locked up, think about they stealing money out your community if they're able to practice discrimination. So because every click of the handcuff is $1 that we lose.
60,000.
Okay.
All right. I'm gone. I'm out.
We, this is grateful, totally grateful, in ways we cannot even mention here. And one of the abiding thoughts that I had while standing over here and looking at you is, this is where our wealth is, always has been, even prior to the challenges and the hardship. At birth, at that innate conception and inception of our community, you talk about a $6 million man or woman. This is real-time valuation. What are the statistics for the cost of educating a child as opposed to imprisoning him? What is the cost to the community? And yet we see the graciousness of God to provide a resting place so that your gifts, your talents, and your skills can be restored and returned to us. And we are grateful. And we must join, we must do our part to see that we recover our wealth, our stolen wealth. You've been stolen one time. Now we've been stolen a second time. We don't intend to do the 3 strikes we have. No, I'm serious. We do not intend to. We owe it to you and to those who are coming intergenerationally, because as Dorothy says, Ida and Jerry, we gotta get the word out. Okay, we gotta let them see this. You think that this powerful presentation wouldn't turn around the little brothers who stand across the street on the corner from my house? You think if they got a chance to talk to these community leaders, this is congressional material, if we were going to class it in that system. This is presidential material and thinking. I wish we could find 2 or 3 candidates who could be as coherent. Think about what we're experiencing every day in the news, who could be half as coherent and have something meaningful to say. So I want to thank you. I'd like at this time, yes.
You asked the question starting out, are we citizens? That was your initial question. And to answer that question, and to be extremely clear with it, in the event, I may be a citizen of the state. I don't know if I'm a citizen of the country. Because if I move to Florida, I lose my right to vote.
That's right.
If I move to Virginia, I lose my right to vote. So my citizenship is predicated on where I live right now. I can vote right now, but I can just easily get up and move and lose everything that's related to governance, self-determination, and all the rest of that stuff.
Yes.
So like all of us that's formerly incarcerated recognize that it's not a theoretical question, it's a practical question. So the brothers and the sisters that's been convicted of crimes in Florida will not be voting this election. So if I went there, I wouldn't have that. So everybody else that says that they're a citizen, what's attached to their citizenship and what they give them upon citizenship is the right to participate in their governance. I don't have that in certain parts of the country. We don't have that in certain parts of the country. So we must only be citizens of the local area that we in because they say it's a state right, which means that I'm only a citizen as it relates to California. I'm not a citizen of Florida if I move there. I'm not a citizen of Virginia. I'm not a citizen. So when we say we're going to put 1 million new voters into play, we're going to put 1 million new voters into play absent several states where we don't have the right to vote at.
Thank you. We want to defer our Q&A right now. We're no more than 30 minutes behind, but still that's more than we had intended, and we do have presenters who are waiting to come. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and let you know this touches all of us. I lost my baby brother. He passed away in DVI. He was convicted under special circumstances. This was not his crime. It was set up. Kind of like on the way to the 7-Eleven that you were talking about. And he spent 12 years in Folsom, and he did the remainder of his time in DVI, and he ended up directing the Scared Straight program there. So he used to host, and he wrote and was connected with some of the Muslim brothers here in the Bay Area. But just at a time, he was convicted of and the sentence of life without the possibility of parole. And he apologized to my mother, and she said, hold up. She said, the judge said life. She said, you could have not gotten out of this with your life. And so in the 1970s, he passed of a heart attack while he was incarcerated. We lost him there. So there's not one of us that this doesn't touch. You know, we see you as our heroes. You have fought, past tense, the good fight. Now you get to go to the head of the class. And we only pray that we are deserving of the time that you have served and the time now, praise Allah, praise God, that you will be able to serve. And we want to help you. So I'm going to turn it over as we go through this with Imam A.S. Muhammad. He's going to bring on Imam Yahya Shabazz. And one of our guests, David Muhammad, has not arrived yet. If he does, we'll try to fit him in. He's the Chief Deputy of Parole for Alameda County.
Probation.
Probation Department, excuse me. Absolutely. And then we'll move on with, this is almost a father-daughter team here, Kyria Shabazz, and talking about her program. Please jot down your questions, and we have time at the end for Q&A. Otherwise, you can address our presenters directly. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum. Let me make a capsule on the presentations from the panelists. Ultimately, what was really being presented here is inheritance. And most of the time we think of inheritance from the way of physical property, real estate, money, those type of things. But there's a term out of a Quranic chapter, Fiaksani Takween, and it's stating that Allah, God, created the human being in the most excellent mode. So no matter what happens, the human being is still, by God, created in the most excellent mode. This presentation from the three panelists really is saying that we need to change the focus of our community from the physical, material matters to the internal and the eternal characteristics that Almighty God has given us. And what God has given us is excellence. Excellence in our logic, excellence in our rational capacity, excellence in our intuitive nature to know what is right from what is wrong. And these are the properties that provide for the material life and the material necessities. For without logic, without reason, without ability from God, capacity, nothing would exist for us. So although all of them had a certain negative experience with incarceration and extendedly long periods of time, the predominant common denominator for them and us is that Almighty God has created each and every human being in the most excellent mode. We have to take the opportunities to make the right choices, to make the right decision, and have the God consciousness to stay right, be right, live right, and then transfer that into our offsprings, into our community, extended families, children, etc. And then we will see this whole new real world, new order come about. Not the false one that is being promoted by the capitalists and the Zionists. All right, so with that, that's a point that I think really I need to convey to you from the context and the text of what we heard from these beautiful panelists that is now departing. Our next presenter, I have probably known him since 1983. Of course, he's much older, but that's okay. Imam Yahya Shabazz, I want to first of all say that we all want to give you our heartfelt appreciation in your service to bring about a nucleus of the American Coalition for Good Government in the Western region, because he is the Western Regional representative for ACGG, the American Coalition for Good Government. That consists of 13 states. And I don't run through all of these states because it takes too much time. But the ACG is formidable in every region of the country except the Western region. And it has been a very proactive and very much well recognized all the way to the White House. I think, well, definitely currently now with this administration, the Obama administration, and I think even before that with the Bush administration. But as far as the East Coast and the Midwest, this is a formidable organization. However, on the West Coast, somehow we have been sleeping and not even at the steering wheel. So the doors hadn't even been open yet. So someone offered, asked Imam Yahya Shabazz about the possibility, saying the car is here. We were waiting for someone to pick it up. But I be damn, no one seemed to want to even take the car. We're giving it to you free. And this is a part of the leadership umbrella that Imam Warthi Muhammad left with our community. He left certain structures that we are to carry on with as a community. And this is one of them. So we wanted to thank Imam Yahya Shabazz because he has been with a dogged determination to see the development and at least the nucleus begin to evolve on the West Coast, and it's very much needed, I think, in regard to a whole lot of different things that's happening in society right now. This organization is very vital and is a key player to everything that's going on that's happening for the good and the betterment of all American citizens. So Imam Yahya Shabazz, he's a veteran of the civil rights movement, a native of Quitman, Mississippi, and he's been involved in working with many aspects of what we have benefited from the civil rights movement, such as the segregation of public facilities, voter registration, and ultimately he became the director of Clark, Wayne, and Jasper County Council of Federated Organizations. This is an organization, a group that was founded by the unified effort of SNCC, CORE, SCLC, which is Southern Christian Leadership Organization, the NAACP, and he worked with Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party to help unseat 2 senators from Mississippi at that time. So Imam Shabazz helped also to organize most of the major civil rights marches in the South, including Selma to Montgomery, the James Meredith March Against Fear from Mississippi to Jackson, from Memphis, to Jackson, Mississippi, and as part of the Freedom Democratic Party's march. He was part of that on Washington, D.C. As well, and currently here in Oakland is the resident imam of Masjid W.D. Muhammad, and believe it or not, authored an acclaimed book, New Leadership into the 21st Century. It is because of his dogged determination and excellent, I would say, tenacity for longevity that we have this assembled today, and anticipate from this many, many great things coming to fruition in the future. I want to bring to you Imam Yahya Shabazz, our Western Regional Representative, and thank you for your attention.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I seek refuge from Allah. I seek refuge with Allah from Shaitan, the enemy of us all. With Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, merciful redeemer, I greet you, dear beloved brothers and sisters, with the greetings of peace in the language of the Quran. Assalamu alaikum. That is to say, may the peace that comes only from God be with you. I'd like to thank you all for being out here today, and thank you, Brother Marvin, for taking the time to come all the way from Houston up here to see our efforts up here. Imam A.S. Muhammad is the state coordinator for the Coalition for Good Government, and Sister Mahassan, who's been up here, is the Bay Area liaison, and Sister Genevieve is the San Francisco liaison, Brother Menelik is the San Francisco liaison, and we have the brothers who's on security around here. They're from Richmond, the liaison for Richmond. And so we've had quite a bit of help, Brother Abu Bakr and Brother Bashir Salam. So, and I also like to acknowledge my special friend, Sister Krista, Reverend Krista, and her husband Tom, from St. John's Episcopal Church, members of our interfaith organizations, and my sister BBO from the Lighthouse Masjid. So we are grateful for everybody for being here. Thank you. Our short presentation is about Islam and democracy, conflict or agreement. And what I like to do, and Imam A.S. talked a lot about it, the human character, in his follow-up of the last presentation here. What I would like to do is, when we hear terms like democracy, we hear terms like law, L-A-W, the word law, we hear terms like constitution, and freedom, we tend to think in political terms. We look at democracy as a political term. We look at constitution as a political term. We look at law as, the police, or we've heard that word many times up here, we can't break the law. We look at all of these things in legal or political terms. And my task today is to go back to the origin, back to the beginning, and try to humanize these terms so that we can see how the language has changed and how important it is for us, people of faith, to take charge of the language. When I say take charge of the language, I'm saying that we cannot allow people to take the language that God has given us and turn a good thing into something that would be bad for us. So let me, I'm going to use biblical and Quranic scripture here. I just turned from where I was supposed to be addressing it, but and that was an important point too. Too late now. Anyway, but I'm not going to give a khutbah though. To my Christian friend, a khutbah is like a sermon. So that's not what this is about. But I want to put this in human form. Islam and democracy, conflict or agreement. And as I said, we want to remove it from the political framework and put it where it should be. This word democracy, I remember when I was growing up, and I was telling the brothers this the other day at Juma. When I was growing up in middle school, they didn't call it middle school then. It was just glad to be in school. About the 8th, 9th grade or so. I remember, and history was one of my favorite subjects. And I remember, when I study history, I kind of picture the era, a time, or the time that I'm reading about, so I can picture the characters. It's like me going to the movies when I'm reading history. I used to read about Chaucer's England, and about Shakespeare. I used to read about Abraham Lincoln, the Civil War, and all of this. And I could picture the Union and the Confederate armies clashing. So this is what made history fun to me, and as a matter of fact, I was so good in history that the student teachers got her degree, her job because I was so good in my studies at that time, I'm glad, but I did stay in 9th grade math another semester. Democracy. So in history, it says when people started coming from England over here to settle this part of the earth, when the pilgrims came over here, the title of that chapter in that history book, as I recall, was Self-Government. Self-government in a new land. That's what it was. Self-government in a new land. And when I looked up the definition of democracy, that's what it's talking about. Self-government. Self-rule. Not from a political term, but from an inward term. Because what we have, when we talk about self-government and self-rule, we have society starting out from an individual level. You don't, you have one man or you have one woman, you have individuals. And these individuals grow into neighborhoods. They grow into cities, they grow into nations. But the governance starts within each one of those individuals. And so there are certain characteristics that God has placed within the individual to help them govern themselves in a way that life would be productive. You know, and Allah says in the Quran, He says, by the fig and the olive and the Mount of Sinai and this city of security, we have indeed created man in the best of molds. Now, the reason that I use scripture here is because it was God that created us. And so what better way to address these kinds of issues than the Word of God? The other thing is that when we as religious leaders, as community leaders, as political leaders, etc., we always try to solve the problems of society and of our personal and individual lives without God. And that's been the downfall when God is the creator. So, self-government, what do we use in order to govern ourselves? When we say in this city of security, this word from security, it comes from the Arabic word amin. Amin. You know, and one of the names of God is El Amin, which is the trustworthy. And that was also one of the names of Prophet Muhammad. But and that was also Jesus. That was also Moses. That was also Ibrahim or Abraham, the father of the faith. You know, this was their character. And this word amin, it means to be reliable, it means loyal, it means to be faithful, it means to be ethical, it means to have integrity. These are human characteristics that God has put in each one of us to govern ourselves. This is democracy I'm talking about. But I'm not talking about it from a political standpoint. I'm talking about it from a human standpoint. Because these are human characteristics that all of us have. And they are necessary for self-rule, for governing ourselves. This is democracy. Okay, I'm going to try to move on through this. Moving to this word constitution. What is the definition of constitution? Constitution means the structure, or the composition, or the physical makeup of the individual with respect to health, strength, and appearance of the body. So now we have this constitution we call the Constitution of the United States, which is really in its original language a human quality. It's not a political quality. It's not political. It's human. So what is the Constitution? This word Constitution is not just merely some name that, you know, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and all of those people, the founding fathers, decided, say, you know what shall we call this? Oh, I know. Let's call it the Constitution. Constitution is how it's the framework of our human makeup. That's why they call it Constitution. You ever heard somebody say, this guy say, oh, he got in a fight or he was in something that was hard for him to do? He said, man, you have to have a strong constitution to deal with that. I mean, you know, so this is how we have to look at Constitution. You see, this is how Islam sees democracy. This is how Islam sees Constitution. And this is how Islam we see this in all humanity. We see this in all humanity. So the Constitution, when they framed the Constitution, what they was doing was embodying all of this ethics and integrity and loyalty and respect and human decency and honesty that each individual have in their natural human makeup that Almighty God has given them. This is that's why the police can't come in your house without you knowing. That's why you got free speech. That's why, because these are human, because God has given you this. You have a right to this. It's a human right, not a political right. This is how you have to look at it. It's a human right, not a political right. Man didn't give you this. God gave you this. You see. They had to pass a whole new bill they call the Voting Rights Bill that they have to ratify every year. And then every time they have to ratify, compromises have to be made with the various politicians, the senators and the congressmen in order in office. Say, well, if y'all ratify this for me, then I'll vote for you on the Voting Rights Bill. You know, God gave me that right. That's something they should really do away with that. The Voting Rights Bill. That should be a movement to do away with the Voting Rights Bill. You know, they don't give me a Voting Rights Bill. Come on now. Okay. So now, freedom. You know, here's one more word here that in the Quran, and it says taqweem. This laqad khalaqna insana fi ahsani taqweem. We have created man in the best of molds, which is what my brother was talking about. This word for mold is ahsani taqweem. You know, ahsani is from the Arabic word hasan, which means beautiful. But when you put the alif or the a onto it, it's ahsani, which means more beautiful, more excellent. So this is the character that God has created the human being in. Hasan, ahsani. It is talking about you are the very best. You are the crown of creation. So that tells us that the nature of man is not a sinful nature, because it has all of these other wonderful characteristics in it, like integrity, etc., etc., etc. You know, and it's saying that God has created us in the best of mold, which is saying that he has given us this wonderful, marvelous character. And when it says this city of security, it means that your property is safe from me. I am responsible for protecting your property. That's why over in the East, Muslims protect the houses of worship of Christians and Jews. When Prophet Muhammad, praise and peace be upon him, one of his name was Amin, when even his enemies would leave town, they would leave their prized possessions with him for safekeeping. Even when they was trying to murder him. You know, he was already keeping some of the people who was trying to murder him. He had their diamonds and jewelry and deeds to their houses and properties and so forth. He had them in his dresser drawer, and he told one of his companions, he said, make sure these people, look, man, they after me, I got to go. I got to leave Mecca. But what I want you to do is make sure that all of those people who are trying to kill me, make sure they get their property before I go. You see. So that's why he was a trustworthy, part of his characteristics. Now, this word freedom. Freedom, it comes from the Quranic word halal. Halal is a word meaning that which is lawful, that which has been deemed to be lawful by God. You know, most of the time when Muslims use the word halal, they use it in the same context that the Jews use the word kosher. You know, that which is lawful, that which is permitted. But we use it more in terms of dealing with food and these kind of, is the meat halal. You know, but halal is a universal term that means all of that is lawful. So God says this in another verse in the Holy Quran. It says, La uqsimu bi hazal balad, wa anta hilum bi hazal balad. It says, nay, I do swear by this city. This is God talking. And he said that this word uqsimu, it means to swear by all that is holy. It also means parcel, which is referring to, you know, property or real estate or a parcel of land. And it also means the destiny, the divine destiny. What God is saying here, and it goes back to the Constitution of the United States, that, you know, when the founding fathers produced that document, and there were only certain people, I believe, I don't know if my history is right here, that were allowed to vote, and they were landowners. But being an inhabitant, being a member of society, automatically puts you in a position of responsibility. So when you're in a position of responsibility, that means that you have to look after your land. You have to look after your property. You have to become a member of the decision-making policies that govern your community, that govern your society, you see. So God is telling us that this is the divine destiny of the human being. This is the divine destiny of the human being. And then it says, and thou art an inhabitant of the city. This word inhabitant, from the word halal, it means to untie. It means to unbind, to set something free. So we're talking about, and some people translate it to say that thou art a free man in this city. To be a free person doesn't mean to do anything that you're big enough to do. So this environment that we live in, America is what you call an experimental government. So, and everything, you are free to do whatever you want to do in America. You're free to do that. And what happens is that the influences that we live in America, what happens is that they work against integrity. They work against uprightness. They work against honesty. They work against the marriage and the family bond. You know, anytime when I first heard of Desperate Housewives, I thought Desperate Housewives was a bunch of women whose husbands worked all the time and they was hungry for companionship. I thought that's what Desperate, I mean, you know. So when you look at series like Desperate Housewives, what does that do to your image of the mother in the family? What did you just heard the sister talking about her role as a mother? What does that do to the role of wife? The wife is the first teacher of the child. But when you look at the image of wives, you know, the wives of Atlanta, the basketball wives, you know, what does that do to your idea and your concept of a wife? What does that do to your idea and your concept of a mother? You don't see the mother in the same frame of mind that you used to see the mother in anymore. When you look at The Simpsons and the total disrespect from child to parent, you don't see the parental-child relationship there anymore. The wife swapping. And these so the influences that we live in work against freedom. The influences that when I say freedom, I'm talking about responsible freedoms. The influences that we live in work against the Constitution of the United States. The influences that we live in work against democracy because they work against integrity. The political system that we work in, you know, that we live under. You don't see people vying for office based on the merits of their character. You see mudslinging. People coming out of the closet with stuff that happened 50 years ago and putting it out there before the public. What kind of message are they trying to, they don't care how it impacts the minds of the people. So no, there is no conflict between Islam and democracy when we talk about democracy. Indeed, Jesus Christ has the highest integrity. Moses had the highest integrity. These men were chosen by God to be leaders. and they brought the same message that Muhammad brought. There's no difference in the message. It is how man has taken the word of God and divided it up into sects, turning Christians against Muslims and Jews against Christians and Muslims against everybody. We should realize that Shaitan is the author of division, not God. Religion comes to unite the human being, not to divide him. Now, Sharia, you know, or as the Westerners say, Sharia. You know, we had one of our imams, Imam Kazim Ahmed, to teach us on Sharia or Sharia law or Islamic law. The time that we have here, and I've already been up here longer than I'm supposed to, but the time that we have here won't allow, because this Islamic law or Sharia law, I mean, it is just heavy. It is just deep if you get into all of the small intricacies that there are. And not only will you be dealing with Sharia law, there are 5 schools of thought in Islam. You know, the Hanbalis, the Malikis, I mean, you can go on, and each one of them have their own version of Sharia law. And, you know, so I'm not going to get into that. What I am going to say, though, is this, is that just like if you commit a crime here in the United States, and you commit a crime over in the East somewhere, say in Saudi Arabia and Iran, Iraq somewhere, you know, India, the punishment for that particular crime, you know, like say for stealing or murder or whatever, you know, as we say zina or fornication or whatever, the punishment would be different and the way that it's carried out would be different. But I have to say this, there's nowhere in the Quran that stoning and flogging till people are dead and that kind of stuff is not allowed. That's not Islamic. Let me say this. There's nothing about stoning in the Holy Quran. There's nothing about flogging somebody, whipping somebody till they die in the Holy Quran. You know, there's nothing, you know, when they talk about cutting off the hands and stuff like that, that's only talking about, you know, changing the way people think. That's the hand, the idea, the mind. That's cutting off the hand, making people better people. So what I will say though is this: everything in the 10 Commandments is Sharia law. Everything in the 10 Commandments is Sharia. What is the first law that Moses brought? La ilaha illallah. One God. That's what it says. Thou shalt have no other God before me. The second commandment is to honor thy mother and thy father. There's a whole chapter Luqman in the Holy Quran that talks about that. The third one is I don't know if it's a third one, but it's dealing with stealing, committing adultery, etc., etc. And in chapter 23 in the Holy Quran, it talks about that. You know, and it's all of it is identifying the same thing. So when we talk about Sharia law, when you see people talking about we don't want Sharia law to be imposed in America, these are just people who want to keep the human society divided, so that you can keep one people arguing against another people and separate humanity. So there is no difference in what most other people believe than in what the Muslims believe. We are all one humanity. And Allah says in the Holy Quran, says, set your face toward the religion, being upright, obedient to God. This is the true religion, but most men understand not. And that word for religion is humanity. So the definition for religion is not Judaism. The definition for religion is not Christianity. The definition for, these are mere labels. And I'm almost done, Hassan. I'm giving 2 more minutes and I'll be done. The definition for religion in Islamic terms, when we say Islam, Islam is not just merely a name of the religion. The word Islam, one of its definitions is humanity, is the natural nature of the human being. It means integrity. It means peace. It means honesty. It means reliability. It means loyalty. And a lot of the issues that you see people dealing with today is mostly customary or traditional stuff that people are still hanging on to from, centuries ago, and they haven't been able to update their understanding about this religion. So this is why we teach this religion in the way that it does, and inshallah, God willing, with this session here, with our updated understanding about what religion is all about, we can tear down the barriers that separate us as human beings. When I see a Christian, I don't see a label, I see a human being. When I see a white person or Latino or Jewish person, I see a human being, because that was the first creation. I was human before I was anything else. Assalamu alaikum.
No, I was not paying him for his work.
She told me to text it to me.
It probably is already at your door. What a masterful explanation, Imam Yahya. We are so appreciative of at the depth of your understanding. And they say the signal of an intelligent person is being able to make something that seems complicated simple. So we really appreciate that, and we're hoping there is a book maybe even to follow. Never have I heard it sound so direct and answer so many profound questions as that explanation. And Imam Yahya is available for any further discussions on that level, and very well prepared to handle it. We're going to move right on, like father, like daughter, Kyria Shabazz. And I'm going to give it right to her, let her take over. She has a presentation, and she has brought some of her product today. So without any further ado, Kyria.
Hello, assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you very much. So my name is Kyria Shabazz Wade. I'm here to give a very short presentation on youth and civic involvement. How do we engage our youth in civic responsibility? You know what I mean? We talk about it. We talk, oh, they need to be doing this. Oh, they're on the corner. They need to be doing something else. Okay, well, how do you get them involved in doing something else, okay? So I'm here to present a very great way on how we get our youth involved in civic responsibility. Because ultimately, that's important. That's what really matters when we grow up and when they grow up into young adults, okay? So first, before I even begin, I want to introduce Mr. Mario Barbosa. This is one of my 5th graders. He's in 5th grade, guys, at New Highland Academy. I've been knowing Mr. Barbosa for the past 3 years now. He's a very active athlete in our program. And I'm going to go into what program I'm talking about in a little bit. But Mario is definitely one of my top students, and he's always ready to get the rest of the kids involved. Another young man, Mr. Keon Commons. He's a 7th grader, and he actually graduated from the program. And he's also just a very great leader. He's one of our youth leaders, so he actually worked within the program, and you'll know all about that, all right? Now, first things first, I would like everyone to grab a card. Can you please pass these out, Mr. Barbosa, along with these? and a pen, and please write your name on it. All right? So, while that is going on, all right? So while the cards are going around, while the pens are going around, we're going to do a small little icebreaker. We've been kind of sitting for a while, you know what I mean? So let's interact with each other for a little bit, okay? So I would like for you to turn to your neighbor and answer these 3 questions. First, introduce yourself, right? You got to introduce yourself. First, introduce yourself. Talk to your neighbor about why are you here at this conference? Why are you here? How did you hear about it? What makes you want to get involved? Last, what does youth development mean to you? All right? So, 3 things. I'm going to repeat it. Talk to your neighbor. Say your name. Why are you here at this conference? And what does youth development mean to you? Shoot. Daddy, that's not fair. You can't talk to brother out. Come on. Come on.
Well, I'm here because I'm connected with the American Coalition for Development in conjunction with
Collective pen
Yaya.
and the paper.
We
Wrote your name on it?
very close associates. In fact, he's the
No, just your first name. All I need is your first name.
and what was the third?
What does youth development mean to you?
Oh, what youth development means to me.
And as you're speaking, remember these responses. It's going to come up later.
Developing a foundation learn to grow up to be responsible citizens in the society.
Your name, bro. Your name. Just your first name.
Because of the same exact band as I did me. Okay. We are in Genesis together.
All right, I'm going to give you all about 1 more minute, and then we're going to move on.
That's me, baby.
No, you never made it this far. So, could I give them?
All right, so can I please get your attention back up front? Yes.
I need a pen and a.
Oh, you didn't get one? Okay. So if you can hear me, clap once. All right, some of y'all, if you can hear me, clap twice. I see baby girl back there. All right, so remember what you discussed. Like I said, it's going to come back up later in the presentation. So, go ahead. Who are we? Who am I? Like I said, my name is Kyria Shabazz Wade. I am a representative from Higher Ground Neighborhood Development Corporation. We are a nonprofit organization that provides services, after-school program services, to 4 different elementary schools right here in these neighborhoods. So the 4 schools that we work with, New Highland Academy, Sobrety Park Elementary, Allendale, and Brookfield. Okay? So within these services, we have a goal. We really teach our kids about resilience. We form all of our activities and our beliefs around helping kids of color, of minorities, because let's all face it, they do not always get the services that they really need. So what we do, we lay that foundation for those kids, so whatever that they may go through in life, they are able to bounce back and still be successful. So that is our main goal, what we strive for as an organization. Now, how do we do this? Through many ways, A lot of it through academics, enrichment, sports, teaching leadership, service learning, and service learning is what I'm going to go to in detail of how we get our youth involved in civic responsibility. Okay? All right, my goal today, is to show the versatile ways to get youth involved in civic responsibility. My objective, how am I going to do this? I'm going to explain the process that Higher Ground uses to get youth involved. And my outcome is to give my audience, you all, the necessary tools to engage your youth that you may work with today, a sense of what civic responsibility is. Okay? Swag. All right. What is youth development? All right. So I'm gonna rely on my cards, my equity cards. That's what they're called. And throughout the presentation, you're gonna find ways that I actually engage you, the same tools that you can use with your youth. This is equity cards. So say you go to a classroom, you don't know anybody's name, this is the perfect way to get them to be involved and engaged. So I'm going to ask a couple people to share out of what they believe youth development is. Mr. Marvin Muhammad?
Okay,
All right, put you on the spot, huh?
yeah, you really did. What do I consider youth development?
Uh-huh. Very quick, very short.
Other than the obvious, developing youth,
Mm-hmm.
I think it means to teach children, and I'll use that term, that they can grow from their immediate environment,
Uh-huh.
and that they have the potential to do just as much as anyone else in existence in this world can do, regardless of where they come from and who they are.
Perfect. All right, Guillermo Meyer. All right. Wait, sorry. Do people call you Memo for short?
They do.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, go ahead.
Just our ability, youth development is, to me, means our ability as a society to be able to allow young people to use their creative facilities to be contributing members of our society, to be fully self-expressed in our society.
All right, that's wonderful. And I'm going to call on one last person. Oh, what do you know? Majida. No? All right, let's move it on. Reverend Krista Fergosa.
What do I think youth development is?
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody's spoken really well about it. It's about giving our kids to realize that they are amazing humans and can do incredible things in this world.
Wonderful. Very, very well put. Okay, so to us as an organization, youth development is a process. It's not you sit in this class, you take this test, and now you know everything that you need to know. No. It's about, okay, so I'm going to prepare you for this test. You excel at this test. I'm going to make sure you do well on this test. And then I'm going to track you as you leave, you know, this environment with me. So I'm going to make sure that you're still doing successful. So it's a process, all right? As a natural process, it means the growing capacity of a young person to understand and act on the environment. And in this environment that we're in right now, where we're standing on 89th and Holly, it's very important that our youth connect with that environment and understand how to know what's negative and what's positive, what should they be involved in, what they should not be involved in, and what direction they should go in life. All right? The principles of youth development. Youth development came to be applied to a set of principles, a philosophy or approach. All right? So this is a thought. All right? So that means you don't only have to change the actions, but you have to change the mentality of a young person to really fully develop them as a young adult. Okay? Practices. All right? So the third use of the term youth development is to describe a range of practices and programs, organizations, and initiatives. And that's what we do. All right? That's what Higher Ground does. All right? So we have these processes, we have these principles, and we put them into practice because it's all about action. As you can see, I have my youth here. I'm not just talking about it. I just left Mario's football game. So it's about really being involved in their life and their development process. Okay? That's right. All right. How does Higher Ground get youth involved in civic responsibility? How do we get them to understand how important it is for them to play a role in the decisions in the decision-making process that impact their community? Because we're not just talking about go around and pick up some trash. No, we're talking about you need to be sitting on the board to make those decisions. Who's allowed to work here? What type of laws are getting passed in your city? They need to be actual leaders, okay? So that's what Higher Ground does. We produce leaders to be a part of this decision-making process. All right, answer? We teach them the importance of service learning while they're in our program. We allow them to participate in activities they enjoy while embedding service learning in all of them. and we find their island of competency by exposing them to a variety of activities, all right? Now, their island of competency, what are you good at? What are you good at? You can't stay in a classroom longer than 5 minutes, so how am I actually going to get to you to let you understand that it's important for you to help your brother, your sister, the person that you don't know, standing outside the street? So how do I get that to you when you can't even stay in your seat for 5 minutes? This is how. That's why. All right, service learning projects. So let's break down service learning, all right? So like I said, service learning is not just going around picking up trash off the street. No. Service learning is doing something great with your environment, something great with your community, and making sure that something comes out of it, making sure that you're learning from the process. So if you are going to pick up that trash, you better know where to recycle it. You better know how to take care of that environment. That's what service learning is. Service learning is basically teaching our youth how to make sure that civic responsibility is a priority. It's a priority. Just like the new Jordans that you may want to get. Yeah, you may want that, but you better make sure that your sister has something to eat on her plate before you go begging your mom for some new Jordans. Okay? All right. So students enrolled in the program start becoming of service through various community service and service learning opportunities they create within the program. Please pay attention to create. They create. All right? So along the line, you got to learn when to step back and when to actually have your youth put what you teach them in action. All right? You got to know when to step back and show what they actually learned. From these activities stem service learning projects. This is where the magic happens. Okay? All right. So community cleanup and recycling trips. All right? So like I said, if you're going to go around the corner and do a community cleanup, make sure they know how to recycle that trash. Make sure that they understand that you're cleaning up because this is your community. Take ownership in that. Our kids have no ownership. They're out here acting like, oh, okay, this is my block, this is my... You don't own nothing. You don't get any rent from these tenants. No, but you're out here ready to kill somebody else because they stepped in the road, they crossed the line. Come on now. No. Let's teach them really how to own these neighborhoods. Like really. All right. Governing communities. Teach them, we have to educate them on how to have a voice in the community. All right? Now, this is where, I got the upper hand because my parents were great at educating me first. But what happens when people don't have those parents? Where do we come in as educators, okay? So you have to actually teach them how to go to city council meetings, how to be patient and sit through without fidgeting, standing up, walk. You got to actually teach them those soft skills on how to develop, how to be important members of your community, okay? And now, when I talk about governing committees, we're talking about parents and students. All right. Now, this is where higher ground involves the families. Every month, we have parent meetings so that they can be a part of the decision making that's happening within their child's school, and that's how you get power. All right. All right. Sweat. Food drives. All right. So these, like I said, these are like tools that you can actually take, and implement within your program. So I try to keep it, something that's actually tangible, something that you can really do to get our youth involved. Food drives. This teaches them to take action by giving to the less fortunate. Penny drives. Students choose where they donate the money. We're doing a penny drive right now, and the kids get to choose where to donate the money. Okay? And we make sure that it's somewhere within their community. Eat to Live. This is a program where we teach kids how to grow their own foods so they can take this back and teach their families. That's civic responsibility. All right? Community All-Stars. Now, like I said, what if you have the island of competition? What if you have that student that can't sit still in the classroom, but you notice, oh, he can run really fast. Oh, he can catch that football. Oh, he's focused while he's running those routes in the play. All right, so we find out what they're good at. We embed service learning within that activity, and that teaches them how to take it serious, okay? So with our football curriculum, they're just not out there playing. No, they actually have to research another player, find out how they impact their community, because it goes hand in hand. You know what I mean? That's what. So what happened to the students that are no longer attending our program? All right, so does that mean, dang, we taught them all of this and now they're just on the street just doing nothing? No. So what we found out is that even though they graduated from elementary school, our students kept hanging out, just kept hanging around the school. You know, and who are we to say, oh, you don't own this, you can't be here. So to make it all work out, we developed a program called Workforce Development Program, okay? So this gives our youth who graduated an opportunity to come back and work within the organization. All jobs are committed to civic responsibility and taking care of their communities. That's why. Workforce Development Program, all right? We push them to choose a career that strikes their passion and is relevant within their community. When I say relevant, I mean, what does your community need? We make them focus on that, all right? We provide them with the tools, with the critical thinking. Things so simple as critical thinking that students don't have now. We help them with that process, and we nurture it, and we make sure that they have a goal, an objective, and an outcome of what they want to do in life, okay? And it needs to be involved civic responsibility. That's why. All right, Green Work Works. I'm going to kind of rush through this because I see my timekeeper. All right, so Green Work Works. Now, Green Work actually stemmed from our workforce development program. And just to give you guys a little idea, we had about 30 kids over in Sabrani Park, and we created jobs for them. And when I say created jobs, I mean we cleaned up the church. We cleaned up the community reform church. We revamped the garden. We cleared the alleyways so students from Madison Middle School can walk back and from school safely. All right? We put garden beds in there so students can grow their own food to take care of their own bodies. Because if you look down on East 14th, there is nothing healthy there. What, KFC? Right? That's real food, right? Popcorn chicken, right? What part of the chicken is popcorn? That's what this is an inside joke. But what part of the chicken is popcorn? Come on now. Let's get it.
I like Popeye now.
Come on now. Come on. All right, so we teach them things like goal setting, taught hard skills. Yeah, you need to know how to rake up these leaves, but you also need to know how to make a goal for yourself and accomplish it, and to be a leader. All right? That's right. All right, so some of the tools that you can walk away here from is engagement. Engage your youth in something that they're interested in and embed service learning within that activity. Trust me, it's easy. It works. It works. Surveys. Find out what they like, so then you can create your activities. Find out what they like, because it's all about them. It's all about them. And incentives. Offer stipends, community service hours, exposure to new activities, new places, new cities. One of the things my dad always brags about is that he was able to take us out of East Oakland to places like San Francisco, as close as that. We went to Mississippi every 2 years. You know what I mean? Just take them out of this environment so they can open up their eyes and see what's really going on. Slide. All right, so if you would like any more information, any more resources, we are available for trainings. We can host trainings. Just let me know how many people you need. This is my contact information, my address. That's the New Highland Academy address where my office is. And thank you for your time.
That's my baby daughter.
I think they should stand and we should give them some applause. They say the fruit falls not far from the tree. And we very much appreciate it. Thank you, Kyria. I remember when she was learning to walk, you know. Now she's soaring, as we see. So it does pay off, and it does rub off. So as she concludes, and it is intergenerational, Leadership is intergenerational. It's a sharing of the equity. So as she winds down her technical process, we'd like to call forward, and thank you for your patience, Guillermo Meyer, and,
May I make a comment before
oh,
you go on?
sorry, I did not see you.
I'm in Rahat Cat. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Hi, your name is Alaman Khaleh. I'm the elder of the community of Osage Community Church of the Sacred African Way.
Yes,
And the presentation sister just gave, we have a school upstairs that we created 26 years ago. And it teaches our children about the African way.
yes.
And the learning. Two sisters started the church. Sister Mama Jasiri and Mama Okanona. And we house the school upstairs. We give the children laptops. We start them in music. We have graduates who've gone on to become a doctor. Sister Lima Holmes, who is at Kaiser, is a pediatrician and a OBGYN doctor. She left here and went to Hampton University and on to Boston Medical School. We have a student now who's at the Boston School of Music, and a young brother is also the minister's son is over at Stanford.
Yes.
So we are teaching our children leadership skills as well as the way about who they are as Africans, with the history of our people, and with the spiritual growth as well.
May I ask you, who should we speak with if anyone is interested here
Well, Sister-
in coming and
well,
taking
Sister
a
Pam
tour?
Williams is upstairs now. She's a sister.
All right. Okay.
I can have Brother Cinnabar go upstairs and get her to come down and say a
Yes.
few words if you're allowed to.
Yes.
Allow her to have a speak.
Thank you for that information. There are cards on the back table there, and perhaps I'll grab one and bring it back up and read to you the very eye-catching phrase that they use in publishing and promoting the work that they do here at school. It's phenomenal work. They produce phenomenal citizens, phenomenal students.
There's a book that's on sale at Foot Marcus Book.
Okay,
And they also communicate with the school in Ghana.
alhamdulillah,
on the
Sister
internet.
School.
Yes.
Okay.
So understand that you're in the house of the children, be over there, that's what that means.
All right. And he is available afterwards for any further questions and further conversations or comments with him. We're going to acknowledge our time. We're trying to catch up. And thank you ever so much, dear Elder, for sharing that information with us. And may I see the card? It has a beautiful picture of the youth on it. I wonder what's that one. Okay, thank you. And I picked up this card in a cultural center, but I was floored by its statement. It says, "What achievement gap? While public schools bemoan the poor academic performance of African American students, we'll just keep on producing scholars." So please pick up one of these. It tells you about the curriculum program that's offered. Okay, we're going to move right ahead and introduce one of our major workshops today. And we do welcome the presence of Mr. Larry Broussard, who will be next. He is the Chief of Staff of Assembly Person Sandre Swanson, the author of the Assembly Bill 1357. Welcome, and we're so happy to see you here. Transportation Justice Working Group, or Winning Big for Environmental Justice, Civil Rights, and Civic Responsibility. We have with us today Guillermo Meyer, or Memo as we call him affectionately, one of the senior staff attorneys at Public Advocates Law Firm, a winning litigator, and part of the litigation team that got $70 million redirected due to the work of the community leaders in filing a civil rights complaint. Genesis organization filed a civil rights complaint against BART, the project authors of Oakland Airport Connector project, for violation Title VI, violation of civil rights. That is, that any agency that receives federal funding must have and allow for the presence and input of the community through which that project is built. They must be in on the design process and input and on the planning process from the, as we say, get-go. So when we found that they were utilizing 200 and some million dollars for a 3-mile project that served only 6,000 people a week, whereas AC Transit was 31, I believe, $million in deficit at that time, and it serves 219,000 riders a week. Now you talk about disparity in equity, and we did something about it. So I bring you forward. He's going to talk about that and a very remarkable opportunity that exists for us here in this arena coming Monday, November 14th, when the President's Commission on Federal Transportation Administration will be here in the Berkeley area, wanting to meet with everyone or anyone who has suffered a civil rights violation, take the testimony and enter it into their record for possible redress. Guillermo, come forward. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Guillermo Mayer. I work for a 40-year-old civil rights not-for-profit law firm called Public Advocates. We're based in San Francisco, but our work really extends across the state. And I thank you for the opportunity to give this announcement, and it's more than an announcement really, because I think it fits really well with the purpose of today's conversation. How do we improve government so that it's more responsive to those who make up this country, those who make up our communities? And one of those key guarantees to create an inclusive society, those protections that exist are found in the civil rights laws that people died for, that people fought for. And those laws are often not enforced, despite the tremendous struggle that occurred in this country to win those rights. A lot of them are essentially on the books without enforcement. We've seen with the election of President Barack Obama that change. We've seen his administration take the enforcement of civil rights and environmental justice, take it seriously, to boost the funding for offices of civil rights, and to investigate complaints. And Mahasin spoke about the complaint that our coalition of community groups brought before the federal government. And it's really encouraging to see what the president is doing at the Department of Justice, prosecuting employment discrimination cases, whether it's race, gender. We see that the Department of Agriculture just settled a lawsuit. $1.25 billion will be provided to black farmers who have been systematically discriminated against in terms of getting access to loans to run their farms. That's happening under the current administration. And these are very historic decisions being made. And the decision that Mahasin spoke about here about the Oakland Airport connector is also sending ripples and shock waves across the country. And let me tell you a little bit more about that. In 2009, at a time when basic bus service was being cut in our neighborhoods, at a time when the fares were going up and it was getting more expensive to get less transit service, at a time when transit union workers were being laid off or they were forced to give major concessions in terms of pay and benefits and pensions, at a time when getting around was critical more than ever before because people were looking for work or trying to maintain the work that they had. Our transportation officials decided to spend some of the stimulus money that came from Washington not in improving that service, that basic service, but rather to build a $500 million tramway to the airport that was going to be ridden by about 6,000 people a week only, that was mostly very affluent folks when you compare it to the people who were losing their transit service on the ground. It was at a moment when people were hurting. Instead of responding to that need
our transportation decision makers decided to build a very expensive, very exclusive connection to the airport. And we felt that that was wrong, and we felt that we needed some federal intervention in that decision. And so we filed that complaint. Genesis, Transform, Urban Habitat, 3 organizations here in Oakland. Our law firm assisted with that complaint. And when the decision came down and redirected those $70 million away from that project, the project is still continuing, but those $70 million were redirected to help preserve existing service. It was a significant victory because we utilized civil rights laws to make that happen. BART failed to do an analysis of the project to see who would benefit from this project and who would not benefit. When they ended up doing the analysis after we filed our complaint, they had to admit that less than 3% of all the riders would come from the immediate Coliseum BART station area. That's where the project's going to begin. It's going to end at the airport. And it's about a 90% people of color community, about 60% in poverty. Yet we could tell from their estimated ridership that only about 3% of the total people, of all the people riding that new service would come from the neighborhood. So it was being built there, but it was not providing, it wasn't addressing the mobility needs of that neighborhood. Well, after that decision, the Obama administration, through the Federal Transit Administration, realized we have to update our Title VI guidelines and our environmental justice guidelines so that more agencies comply with Title VI, so that community groups know how to use Title VI and environmental justice like we did in Oakland to make change. And so they're holding listening sessions around the country. This is the 4th, here in Berkeley, or in Berkeley it's going to be the 4th of 5 total sessions. And it's top officials coming from DC, like Dorval Carter, who's the chief counsel for FTA, will be in the same room with the community to hear directly about how we think civil rights and environmental justice can be strengthened in the context of public transportation. We encourage you to attend this event. It's on Monday. There's a flyer in your packet with all of the information. You can RSVP at any point, even show up, actually, and you can even just show up if you don't RSVP. It's off of the Ashby BART station in Berkeley. It's literally right there, the Ed Campus Roberts. And we're going to be there because this is a very unique opportunity to establish the civil rights rules that we can use to win these kinds of victories. So I really want to encourage you to consider going, even if you're not involved in public transportation matters, but you care about strengthening, about using this unique opportunity of having the Obama administration in office and strengthening that legacy that so many people fought for, and making sure that we can use it today in practical campaigns like the one about the Oakland Airport Connector. There's another very exciting development, and Marilyn will speak about in terms of the youth bus pass. Is that no?
I will.
You will? Okay. Or I can also include it in, but it's on the flip side of this flyer, and that is Thursday, November 17th. We have an opportunity to win free bus transportation for our youth, so they can get to school, so they can get to school, they can get to work, they can get to play, they can get to worship, they can get to do everything that we want young people to be able to do. You know, the school bus, the yellow school bus system in California died a long time ago. Today, the yellow school bus is AC Transit. Today's yellow school bus is Muni in San Francisco. So why is it that families are being forced to pay out of their pocket every single day to get their kids back and forth when it used to be provided relatively for free?
Yes.
Right? Now that's gone. And now so we're trying to win something back. We're trying to make sure that young people have the mobility they need to do what they have to do to progress in this society. So Genesis is leading this. The amazing leadership of Genesis has created a whole campaign around this. Congregations are moving behind this, and there's an important vote Thursday, November 17th at the Alameda County Transportation Commission to include this free youth bus pass into the expenditure plan for the next ballot initiative called Measure B. Anyway, so thank you for your time. I think this is really about how we use local campaigns like the bus pass, like the Title VI challenge, and how our nation is learning from the things that we're doing here locally. And that's feeding back, and hopefully it means it's creating more responsive government, more open and inclusive decision making, and that's what we're about. So thank you again, and my contact information is at the bottom of this flyer. I do apologize that I need to leave. I won't be available for questions. I'm celebrating my birthday today with my family, and so they're waiting for me so we can go to dinner. But it's a pleasure to be here.
That our brother that was here earlier from our church in Sacramento is giving leadership to the black farmers that you mentioned, and they're having a summit here, 2011 Black Agriculture Summit, improving the lives from the inside out. I wanted to mention about the fact that our school upstairs goes to the Nigerian farmers out here by the casino up here in Oakland. I think it's maybe a casino, but they have land for the Nigerian community and the young adults doing farming. We take our students there to learn about the farming and the food that's grown there. They bring it back here and sell it to our community. Wonderful. So it's an enterprise as well as they learn about agriculture.
And we appreciate you mentioning that, because we know that the farmers market is a movement that's really taking hold in terms of food security and providing food from our own hands and from our own production. So again, that's another arena that we can access you after the meeting and talk more and get more information about if we can. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Guillermo Meyer, a senior attorney with Public Advocate, for his hard and diligent work in helping us achieve that victory. Marilyn Ababio will be coming forward next. Come right on, Marilyn. I'm going to let you do your own bio. We are partners, not in crime, but in kind. I like that. And she'll tell you more about what that connection is. But Marilyn has a history that goes back to, how many of you remember Shirley, the Honorable Shirley Chisholm? All right. This is where she cut her teeth in leadership and in politics. And she'll share with you about her varied career and talk about what we're doing again in the bus pass.
I'll do my best not to be boring, but this was one of the icebreaker slides I used. You could just go right to the next slide. Hassan was talking about the privilege and honor that I had to be mentored by the Honorable Shirley Chisholm. My background, early in my work career, I graduated UCLA, and then I worked on Capitol Hill, and I worked for the mayor of Newark for a couple of years, and that's when I met Shirley Chisholm, and I traveled with her as she organized the National Political Congress of Black Women. And I received my master's degree and went on to build a business and raise a family. But at the same time, I've also been involved in the area of environmental justice. And I would like to talk a little bit about how individuals are critical to the united effort to make change. And this slide, it just has bullets for you. But I'd just like to tell you the story of how the environmental justice movement got started. It was in South Carolina when a huge company that decided it had some toxic waste and wanted to dump it. So it drove through the state of South Carolina and dropped it along the road. So when the state government realized that they had toxic waste on the road, they decided to collect it, to clean it up, and decided to put it in an African American community. Well, the African American community said no. And they came out to protest, and with them was one of our congressional representatives, Walter Fauntleroy. But the police didn't know that. So they were out there beating black people in the head the way they do, and they arrested Walter Fauntleroy. So when he got back to Washington, D.C., he said, well, I'm going to use the power of government and look into this. So he asked the government accounting office to determine where is all of this toxic waste going in America. The government accounting office did that work, and so did the United Church of Christ. They, with Reverend Chavis at the lead, they figured out together and concluded that most of the toxic waste in America is in African American and Latino communities, 75% of it. So moving on, the EPA decided, well, we're supposed to be protecting the environment, and now that the government has demonstrated that we are collecting pollutants in certain communities, then let's take a look at that. And they created the Environmental Protection Agency's Environmental Justice Group. Now, the National Institute of Health decided to look at the waste itself and determine how toxic is it, because it had to be classified. You know how the government can kind of complicate things? I mean, it's simple enough for us to say we don't want waste in our community, but they wanted to classify it and categorize it. And these kinds of things become important when you are making a legal case. So, it's important at some levels, but the publication determined that it is toxic and it is harmful to your health. Dr. Robert Bullard, who I like to think of, is an African-American man who is the leader of the Clark Atlanta University Environmental Resource Center. I like to think of him as the father of environmental justice, because a lot of his energy went into the signing of the Executive Order 12898. And I happened to be working in Washington at that time, and I read the white papers that came from different organizations around the country. And one of the other speakers that was here, I think one of the people who had been incarcerated, was talking about dignity and human respect. And that's exactly what those white papers were talking about. They were talking about the Poder, a Hispanic group, was talking about how their people are degraded, forced to work in almost slave-like conditions, and not receiving citizenship, not receiving any kind of respect. The African American community, our story. Racial discrimination, paid less for the same work, our story, as well as the Native Americans had issues of sovereignty that they wrote about. So under the pressure of concerns from around the country, President Bill Clinton signed Executive Order 12898, and that was to protect low-income and minority communities from federal actions that would harm the community. And the Oakland Airport Connector that Guillermo just talked about was one such action. Next slide, please. So that's the executive order, and it folds into Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and it folds into protections for people who don't speak English. It folds into protection for people who have disabilities. These protections allow those individuals to understand that they do have rights. And often the protected communities are called environmental justice communities, and they're found with multi-ethnic, multilingual populations, communities that suffer from unfair effective policies. They lack identification as people are planning for these communities. They act like they don't know where we are. We experience disparate or different health outcomes because we do have so much degrading of our community. And this point is a point that is very important and applicable to today, is that we failed to rise to power to protect our own interests. This is a critical point, and I think this is why we're here today. Next slide. So peace is possible in California. There is a law, an environmental justice law, and it talks about the fair treatment of all people of all races and cultures. Next slide. So we have to ask ourselves, are some of our practices, are we looking, it's not environmental justice if we're not spending our money in wise ways. Next. It's not environmental justice when we go into stores and we can wrap our lips around any kind of bottle or whatever, but we can't fix our mouths to say that we want some fresh fruit and vegetables in those stores to feed our kids. That slide, we don't know what's in that bag, but if you look at the top of the incline as it gets out to the development, you can see there's no fence. What about our children? When do we speak up and say, we need a fence here for the safety of our kids or for our community? This is another example. We have to think in terms of, what if you're elderly? Does it mean that you just don't cross that street? You don't go over there? We understand sometimes that as a community, we feel occupied by a police force that has no respect for us. This kind of neighborhood cracks in the sidewalk and other kind of repairs, it's the responsibility of you to notify your political representative that this is not acceptable in my community. If you don't, you're going to get facilities like this. This is a shot of Richmond, the Chevron plant in Richmond, that is crippling and killing people with that kind of pollution. The highest rate of asthma and hospitalizations in the country. It hurts our kids. Next slide. So, if you find out that any project, it doesn't have to be a transportation project, it can be any kind of building project, if it creates a barrier, or it changes the amount of time it takes you to get from here to there, or it disrupts your access to your child care, your social services, or physical activities, or if it's dangerous to you or any member of your family or your community, if it's too much noise, and if there's no open spaces. These are the kinds of things that you have a right to be concerned about in your community. So how are you going to help? What can you do? Well, you have to know your rights. You have to understand that the federal government does have protections, that filing an administrative claim is something that you can do as an individual, that you can take up a legal action, you have a lot of support, and you need to participate in decision making. So who are the advocates? There's organizations like Genesis right here in this room. There are Genesis members in this room. Join Genesis, join Public Advocate, join Transform, join your church. Figure out what can you do. The little sister who was here, Miss Shabazz, she was doing a fabulous job talking about how she's motivating young people to take an interest in their community and to understand how they can help the community and how they can impact the community. Well, we as adults, we need to be able to support those young people. So the American Coalition for Good Government is calling for a stronger community focus. We need to go ahead and interview. What I mean by that, just have a conversation with our public officials, with agency staff. Don't be afraid to go in and talk to people about your concerns. Document what they said, ask them to document it. Why not? And then have a conversation that will empower your community to act on your behalf. And these are some references for you. If the first, the environmentaljusticekit.com is a toolkit that explains in great detail how to create a community action around environmental justice. The new Jim Crow talks about incarceration and the benefits to the system for incarcerating millions of people. And I included a report for those people who are interested in air pollution. And then the last source is for those people who are interested in planning. It's an excellent resource. So I thank you. That's the presentation. I hope I didn't go too fast.
Assalamu alaikum. As we wind down on the last presenter, I think the content of what has been presented here today has been profound, and obviously we are very thankful that we have Mr. Larry Brazard, who is the, let me get that correct, he's the Chief of Staff for the Honorable Assemblyman Sandra Swanson office. And although Mr. Swanson is not here, we are very pleased to have his Chief of Staff. And without taking a lot of time, because things are winding down and people are departing, we want to first of all say that Mr. Swanson works hard to support universal health care, create local jobs, improve educational opportunities, promote affordable housing, reduce crime, secure youth and senior citizens services, protect consumers, and improve mass transit, build successful small businesses, and advocate for a healthy environment. And I think that is quite a menu. And it is apparent when we look at what was recently a signed bill to increase voter registration opportunities by Governor Brown, and that was Assembly Bill 1357. And the importance of this, I think it was expressed well through his press release. So I will read this press release and then bring forth Mr. Brazard for his presentation. And in regard to the press release, it says, Governor signs Swanson's bill to increase voter registration opportunities. Sacramento, California, Assemblymember Sandra Swanson, Democrat of Alameda County, made the following statement after Governor Brown signed his bill AB 1357, a measure to authorize counties to provide voter registration forms on their government websites. At a time when voting rights are being attacked state by state, I'm proud that our governor is making it easier, not harder, for Californians to vote. California is behind the times with respect to voter registration procedures. Currently, the only way for a voter to register online is by using a federal form. And that form does not collect all of the information required by state law. As a result of using an irrelevant online form, county election officials waste valuable time contacting voters in order to retrieve additional information to verify voter eligibility. Swanson cited Sacramento County as an example, explaining that the county received 5,856 new registrations on the federal form in 2010, and that's a lot of applications. The forms had to be hand-entered into the system and verified, more than doubling the processing time. So AB 1357 simplifies the process, reduces the unnecessary burden on the county election officials, and expands public access to voter registration. So he concludes, that is, Mr. Swanson, that this new law is a step forward in preserving democracy in California. I think the magnitude of that, if we as individuals can really perceive it, is awesome, because it empowers now every voter to be able to look at his county, and it may take some time to be implemented, form and get registered without all of the extended effort that it normally takes through channels of going into the office and other things. So without further ado, and on the basis of time, we're very honored to bring up Mr. Larry Brazard, who is the Chief of Staff for our Super Assemblyman Sandra Swanson. Thank you much. Thank you. Thank you.
I really don't need that. I'm probably loud enough without it. But let me begin by saying the Assembly Member sends his regrets he couldn't be here. He's out of town at a conference. As you know, we're undergoing a lot of hassle in Sacramento with the budget. As you know, there's never any money. Each year, it seems that we are not really fixing the problem. We're having to deal with some folks who don't want to do what is necessary to create a revenue stream. They don't want to reform the prison system. When we start spending more money for prisons than we do for higher education, we have a serious problem. So the assembly member wanted to make sure I came and talked to you. I think about 1357. I appreciate the great words in our press release. You know, we send them out. But let me just simplify it for you very quickly, because I want to talk to you about something very important, because I'm dealing with the hardcore. You're the only ones left. So let's really talk. Right. So, and I'm going to keep it brief because I know you want to move on. But the 1357, we designed that bill to basically allow people to register to vote by the internet. And so when you do that, you open it up, because we have a lot of youngsters, and that's how they communicate. They communicate with text messages, internet, Facebook, you know, and you know, if you're like me, I'm not that technically motivated to text all day or to spend a lot of time sitting in front of a computer, but they do. And basically that's why we went on and did 1357, is try to capture that young crowd that need to participate in this process. I'm very glad to see your organization, because as the young lady said before me, we have to take power. Nobody's going to give it to you. No, they'll run over you if you let them. Anybody will. They'll tell you we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and they don't do it. One of the things you need to understand about the political process is, Jesse Unruh said, most of it is ruled by money. Quite frankly, the lobbyists control the process. It's very hard for a grassroots organization to get something done. And most of the time, they don't even use the tools that are available to them. And some of these tools, such as, how many of you ever heard of a political PAC? Do you realize that for us, as African Americans, that is one of the tools that we should use to get power, to elect people, to train candidates. But we don't do that, because we don't know about it. And so what we need to do is start grooming some of these young people. I saw a young senator here just now. She needs to be encouraged. She needs to be helped. She needs to be a part of the political process, whether that's an internship in our office or wherever that is. But first thing you must do is learn, who are your representatives? Who's your congressperson? Who's your city council person? Who's your county supervisor? Who's your assembly person? Who's your state senator? Do you know who they are? And if you don't, you should. And I say that because from everything that you deal with in your daily life, they can impact that. They have some degree. If you want to sit down with a banker, trust me, if you came to our office and said, my banker is messing me around on my house, I need to talk to him, they won't talk to me. One phone call from us, they sit down with you. That's what happens. But that is the use of the political process and power. You must understand that if people are busy, they might say, they'll tell you, no, you got to keep going in there. Like even with me, you know. If you want a letter to the Air Force Academy, the Army, the law school, and you say, you know, I'm going to tell you, write the letter, send it to me. Exactly. But you got to call me back. Did you send my letter? Because in the course of the day, as you know, the chief of staff, if you know, I've got 5 committees I'm monitoring, and I got to tell the assembly member, this is how you should act on this. This is what that's because we do the research. He doesn't have time to do it. We're the ones that bring in the legislation. We're the ones that sit down with him. He makes the decisions, but the legwork, the research, and bringing it to him comes from us, from his staff. And I'm responsible for making sure that information is correct and that we are actually doing something. If you look at the Assembly members' legislation, we will keep doing something till we wear it out. Food stamps for prisoners who were convicted of drug offenses. This absolutely doesn't make no sense why we can't get them food stamps. We give it to murderers, we give it to child molesters, but we won't give it to a sister who's in a car, got arrested, got a drug offense. Now she can't get into the public housing, she can't get food stamps, she can't feed her family because of a drug conviction. And it doesn't cost the state any money to do this. This is federal money. Why won't they do it? Well, you might sell the food stamps for drugs. That's not happening. So we've introduced that bill 5 years straight now, and we got it to the governor's desk once, and he vetoed it. That was Schwarzenegger. It's hung up now in Senate Appropriations. We're getting messed with a little bit on it, but we will keep introducing legislation like that. We've embarked, we had some legislation to help young folks who find themselves in situations where, you get arrested for something, it's hard to get a job. Misdemeanor, whatever it is, it's hard to get a job and you gotta mark that box, yes, I've been arrested. All right. And most of that is our young African-American males can't get decent jobs as a result of that. We came up with some legislation to remedy that with what we call clean slate legislation. But my talk to you is this, is that you've gotta know who represents you, and you gotta go into them. If you've got a city, county, state, federal problem, you gotta go to that source. If it's a federal problem, you go to your congressperson. You ultimately hold us accountable by the way you vote. And if you're not voting, vote. That's what holds us accountable. You can have a lot of influence on who gets elected by your vote and by the work you do prior to that vote. If you have a candidate that you like, you should get in there and help them while they're running, when they need you, so that when you come and have a problem, they're going to sit down or make sure your problem gets handled. But remember too, a lot of folks don't like to go to representatives like Republicans. I always think, hey, if they represent you, make them represent you. Okay, because you'll be amazed at what you can get out of a Republican. Because they're going to be guilty because they know they ain't thinking about helping no black folks. All right, that's number one. So you go in with your list. Most people make the mistake is they go in to talk to us and they can't tell me what they want. I said, well, what do you want me to do? Well, no. Then I end up having to tell them what they should be telling me. You want a letter from me, bring it. Hey man, I need you to write this letter. I'm trying to get this job. I'm trying to get in the Air Force Academy. I'm trying to get into school. Whatever that is. Sometimes a letter from us can make a difference. Sometimes a phone call from us can make a difference. Sometimes you not getting into another legislator's office and I call them and say, well, hey, I sent somebody to see you and now I'm seeing that you don't want to talk to them. What's that about? They don't want that call from me. I hope that when I found out, they started a process called political action committees when I was in law school at Hastings, and I said, this political action committee stuff is for black folks, man. We could do some powerful stuff with this. We pool our little $5, elect us a city council person, elect us a school board member, train folks how to be good candidates. And so that's why I wanted to come and talk to you, because you need to start using the tools that we have to get the power that you should have. And if you don't, trust me, somebody else is using it. And they make it like you can't do it. They make it like if you decided to wake up in the morning, you wanted an initiative to stop something, that you wouldn't be able to go out and gather the righteous signatures. Trust me, you could get the signatures. It's just a matter of you sitting down, strategizing, and thinking about it. And even if you have to come and ask someone like me, how would we do that? Do you have any ideas? Oh yeah, So you got to use us. You got to use the young people. They have more time than we have. they have time to organize and do stuff. You know, so I don't want to take up a lot of time. I'll answer any questions you have, but my goal is for us not to take for granted the gains that we made during the civil rights movement. Yeah, Obama's president, but racism ain't dead. You know, people taking advantage of poor communities ain't dead. People of color getting relegated to the back of the bus when it comes to environment, when it comes to benefits, when it comes to health care, it ain't dead. And so we still have to be vigilant about our rights, protecting them, going after them, knowing who to talk to. Like you've heard it many times. It ain't what you know, it's who you know. So if you don't have a list of your representatives that represent you and work for you, I work for you. When you call me, I got to deal with you. I can't just hang up the phone. You know, I work for you. The assembly member works for you. And you gotta understand that when you're talking to us. It ain't a matter of us being too above what you elect us. Your vote is critical to us. I've been in the legislature and seen elections come down to one vote. I've seen that. One vote determines some elections, whether a person represents you or don't represent you. And trust me, in 2012, it is going to be a crucial election year because remember, they redrew all the lines. By that I mean, you know, every 10 years the census comes out and we're required by law to readjust the lines of representation in Congress and all the elected positions, Senate, Assembly. We have to adjust those lines to account for the shifts in demographics, population, and so forth. So this year, no, they cut the gerrymandering out because now they had a commission that did it. They took it out of the legislators' hands. And when we were doing this, I looked at my Republican counterpart and I said, you guys really gonna do this? Because y'all gonna lose on this one. Oh, we're tired of the legislature, blah, 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 drawing the lines, gerrymandering, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, well, let me tell you something. Before, when we were doing it, we would protect Republicans. Now that you're gonna let the commission do it, trust me, you're gonna lose seats. And right now, they got a movement to go to court to take away the commission's power to draw the lines. Because this state is not a Republican state. If you look at where the Republicans live, guess what? And how gerrymandering, remember, they were gerrymandering the Republicans to keep them in seats. All right? Now, when you look at where the people live, there's more folks living in communities of color than there is in Piedmont, Oakland Hills. I mean, yeah, they vote, but they don't control what can happen. Now, what we have a tendency to do, I remember standing in the back, having to go to the back of the bus. I remember in Texas when my mother, the man told her, you got to drink out the colored fountain. My mama said, oh, no, I ain't drinking out that fountain. Well, that's your fountain. She said, if it's so good, you drink out of it. I'm drinking out of this one. I remember those days, all right? I remember those days. And so I think we got young people that don't know nothing about that. They don't know that. They think everything's okay.
Yeah, they do.
And what they don't realize, we got a black president. Well, I never thought I'd see it. I don't know how many of you thought you'd see it, but I sure never thought I'd see that. And believe it or not, black folks didn't put him in power. Black folks did not vote for Obama. That's true. You know, but now we have an opportunity to allow the brother to have a shot. All right. That means we got to vote. All them 18-year-olds we know got to vote. You got to make a pledge. Your organization, every one of you, like I have made a pledge of myself. I'm bringing 5 people with me that have never voted. I got some worthless cousins. I'm going to get them. You know, and what I'm going to do with them is I'm just going to say, sign this absentee ballot. They're going to send it to you in the mail. When you get it, call me. And I'll go over the list. And I like to do this, and you can call them on me when these initiatives come out. I usually go out and tell people, I don't tell you how to vote. I tell you what it does. I tell you the advantages and disadvantages. I just try to tell you what it's really about. Because sometimes you read some of this stuff, And you don't know you voting to throw yourself out your house. You know? So I always like to let people know, and it's gotten so bad with my family now, they don't even ask me no more well, how you voting, man? Well, what about this person, you know? And the reason I do absentee is because you have enough time to study the people.
Research.
Yeah, you can research a person. You know, don't vote for a judge just cause he on the ballot and he says he's a Democrat or whatever he says he is. Read about him. Look him up, Google him. You know, call his campaign office. But when they campaign, you can call them. They want to talk to you. Your vote. Your vote holds us accountable. And never let us off the hook. If we do something you don't like, you need to call us. You need to tell us. You need to pick up the phone and say, hey, Mr. Swanson, that vote you did on blah, 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 we don't like it. Because we keep track of that. You know, I keep track of it anyway. So I want to, you know, if there are any questions you have, I'd rather have a dialogue instead of her talk at you. Is there any questions you have, anything that I can help you with?
Let me ask the question, since Mr. Swanson's up for term limits, is it likely he will run for Senate?
Yeah, let me digress and talk about that to this degree. The Assembly member will be running for Senate District 9, which is currently represented by Senator Lonnie Hancock. Now, understand that in the normal situation, an incumbent Democrat wouldn't challenge one of his colleagues, and quite frankly, the member, Ms. Hancock, been friends for years. But let me just tell you the backstory that you might not know about on that. When Ms. Hancock was running against Wilma Chan, she was not going to win in that race without Richmond and Oakland coming in heavy for her. What she did was she realized she needed my member's endorsement, but more than that, she needed Barbara Lee's. My member endorsed her, said, no problem, I'll endorse it. She asked my member, will you go and see if I can get Congresswoman Lee's endorsement? Congresswoman Lee said, no, I don't want to be involved in that. So my member told Ms. Hancock that. Ms. Hancock wouldn't accept that. Constantly kept calling him. Look, does Lonnie Hancock know? Does Congresswoman Lee know I'm only going to run for one term and then I'm going to support you? He said, oh, well, thank you. Well, I'll let her know that. That might make a difference. Well, it did. And so Barbara endorsed her, Lonnie wins. Well, when I started working for the Assembly member, because I was with Jerome Horton before that from Inglewood, and he told me the story. And I looked at him, I said, do you honestly believe that woman is going to keep her promise? He said, oh yeah, we friends. I said, how long you been a part of that? 30 years? I said, she ain't going to keep the promise. But he had what he thought was this friendship. Let me just tell you this. I don't care how liberal the person think they are. Racism ain't dead. Some people think they know how to take care of us better than we can take care of ourselves. The new Senate District 9, and the reason the member will run is because the new Senate District 9 is 55% people of color, and half of that is African Americans. He had, after Hancock made her promise to him, he began to build a campaign. Now all of a sudden she said, when she told him, she changed her mind. I said, you need to go meet with her. So he met with her. Her story was, well, I don't quite remember it like that. Then it went from when people told her she's 70-something years old, people might think you have Alzheimer's, you got to change that line. So now she went from that to, well, I didn't quite say it like that. Now she's just at, I didn't say it. So there's a progression. But she told more than my member that, and she told more than Barbara Lee that. But that ain't why. Has nothing to do with it. Right now, Mr. Swanson's out there in terms of campaign. He built a committee. We're raising money. The district seemed like it was drawn for him. When we looked at the district, we drew a district and said, if they do this, man, we got to run. And they did. They drew a district better than we drew it. So I say all that to say is that you really need to know who represents you, write it down, and visit them. I don't care if you can't get green food and quality food in the local grocery, then go to your representative, county, city. Say, we need a new supermarket, we need a Whole Foods super, whatever. But you gotta move on that level. You've got to meet with your representative. You can't just sit in your house or in your home and say, I can't do nothing, I can't make change, bull. You know, the people I see in here know as well as I know, it ain't 40 people make a change, it's usually 3 of us. With 40 people that we claim we got behind us. Because we know they ain't coming out to say they ain't with us.
That's true.
So if we win something, we know they're gonna be out there in force to get it.
Right.
And so do that. So nobody knows. But use your representatives. I mean, go visit, they work for you. And most of the time, I never see black folks in the Capitol, and it bothers me because everybody else comes in there and wants me to put some legislation forward, but I don't see my people coming in there. I gotta beg them. I gotta go find them. I gotta drag them in there. And it's time that this day and age, we need to change that. I mean, I shouldn't have to do that. So anyway, I'm sorry. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, perfect.
What district does, what area does District 9 cover?
It's the new district, as you know, the old one covered Richmond, Oakland, Berkeley, and then swung down through the Caldecott Tunnel and came out into Livermore, Pleasanton, all the nice suburban areas. Well, the new district now goes from Hercules, Bonneau, all the way down to San Leandro, and it goes over to Berkeley. It doesn't go across the tunnel. It doesn't go across those mountains. Yeah. So it is truly an African American district, but I hesitate to say that because the statistics in the district are so close in terms of, I think the African American population in the district is 19%, the Asian 17, Latino 16, so it's close. So it's going to take a coalition, and I've been trying to get the politicians in the Black Caucus to understand we got to get out the mentality that it's a black district. Ain't no such thing no more.
That's true.
We got to run quality people like I saw here, that young lady, for office. And so we got to prepare them to represent everybody on the school board. We got to prepare them to be able to run for city council. We got to show them how to do it, you know. And it's a passion with me. I mean, when I was coming up, I did the marching, I did and I expect to look back behind me right now and see a bunch of brothers and sisters. You know what? It's worse.
Well, yeah.
The dropout rate is going to increase since I was in school. When I was in school, education was so important. My parents pounded that in my head, that you will never move up the economic ladder unless you get educated. And we took that serious. If you caught me messing up down the street and spanked me, I beg you, please don't call Earlene. Because when I get home, she gonna rough me up again.
You know that's right.
All right, now you whip me, somebody gonna wanna sue you. And we've lost that taking care of one another. We don't have it no more. Now everybody's looking out how I get over on you. And it's sad because they use the community that they're from, they make us the victims. You know, like a guy told me, they ain't out there robbing in Piedmont. Because you robbing Piedmont, you ain't gonna get out of the block before you in handcuffs. So they'll do the easy thing. And that is prey on the most vulnerable. But anyway, at least I digress. I hope I answered your question, yes.
You mentioned take your power, use your tools.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something about the political tax.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said, you spoke about political action committee.
It's the same thing. The PAC is the short acronym for PAC. PAC is acronym for Political Action Committee.
And it used to be very.
Yeah, but basically, let me just tell you what that is that you can register a political action committee. Like I have one, you know. It's called African American Leadership PAC. Now, what I do with that is I go, because I'm in the position I'm in, and a lot of the powerful lobbyists want to talk to me sometimes, I tell them, you need to donate to my African American Leadership PAC, And then they'll put some money in there, and there's no contribution limits on that. So I'll have them dump about 100,000 in there, and then I go and elect people to office. I go and say, I want you to run for city council, my brother. You'll take care of that. And then I give him the money to run for city council, or I put troops on the ground for him that walk door to door for him, or I do fundraisers for him, or I hire him a political consultant, or I get him some political literature so he can do what he needs to do to win. But more than that, I need to train him how to be a candidate to win. Now understand that we've got to start using that. Now, here's what bothers me. I've been in the legislature since '82 with Willie Brown. Now, I remember when we had 13, 14, we're down to 7. In that time period, the Latinos and the Asians Latinos have 22, the Asians have like 7 or 8. Now, I know good and well, they ain't running in certain districts because it's Latino or it's Asian. They have been grooming and training candidates. They have been holding workshops to train people how to run for school board, city council, for the water district. I don't care. If it's an elected office, there's a procedure. There's a way to win. You got to learn how to do that. It ain't how, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's who you know. You know, but you got to win. And you got to get people like me and like the African American staff, Capitol staff involved, and you got to have allies to win. But we got to start training our young people how to come in and replace people like me, because I'm gone next year. Yes.
So I understand that corporations now, their ability to give unlimited monies, is that?
Well, to a political action committee. Like, let's say, your coalition should have, the American Coalition for Good Government, there should be an American Coalition for Good Government PAC. There should be a political action committee. The first thing you should do is ask some of your members, like I told the African American leadership, the African American staff, Capitol staff PAC, I said the first thing you guys need to do is get a little seed money. I said you need to come and ask every black chief of staff, it ain't that many, to give you $100. Okay, just send them a letter. Then you know who's with you, who ain't. You know, so if you got your Good Government Coalition PAC, just like the unions do. You know, your union dues go into a political action committee. There's a certain percentage of your union dues. That's why unions can lobby and fund Governor Brown, give Governor Brown $100,000. That's how they're able to do it.
That's why they want to get rid of those unions.
Yeah, well, they got a lot of political power. They ain't gonna get rid of them. Trust me, when you start, when you have the ability to make somebody win or lose, you got power. Now, the other thing that the Republicans did this time that I told them not to do, and they did it anyway, they went for this open primary thing, which now makes PACs more powerful than ever before. Because the open primary is the top 2 vote getters runoff. That means that no matter what happens in the primary, you got to run again. The top 2 candidates who get the most votes, regardless of whether they get 50% or not. All right, and that's a little different than the ranked choice vote, and that's a whole nother issue. But let me just say this, that now with open primaries, a PAC with $5,000 can determine whether somebody wins or loses. And trust me, you'd be amazed at the power you have. When you're able to use your PAC to elect a school board member, I'm just telling you, start small. Sometimes we want to eat the elephant and just put him on the grill. Well, you can't, you got to start small, you know. Take a little nip of the elephant, put it on the grill. So you want to start with a water district, a school board race, a race that only costs maybe $5,000, where you begin to get all the principles you need in terms of how a candidate becomes a candidate, how they speak. Now, I know you've seen this Rick Perry dude melt down, you know, in debates. Well, he ain't ready for prime time.
That's right.
And he'll never be ready.
No.
Okay. So I'm just saying that. Yeah. But anyway, hope I answered your question. I get carried away.
We have.
Oh, time's up.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But see, at this point, please, I know your questions are important and they're vital to us, and above all, vital if there's extended time. Mr. Broussard, that you have to be with us. We're probably going to be closing down within the next 10 minutes.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you're still available, I would
Yeah,
encourage him.
I'm whatever you want to do.
All right,
I'm
this
here,
is-
so
This is fine.
I came to do this, so I'm here.
The big
Mm-hmm,
benefit question I need for here
mm-hmm,
and ACGG,
mm-hmm.
what can we do to have that engagement with you or one of your staff that's really qualified
Mm-hmm.
to let us get the specifics on exactly what you're talking about in regard to PAC and exit?
Okay.
Okay, and then the other thing is, Mr. Swanson office, are you dealing with speech writers at all?
No, I do all that.
You do all that.
Mhm.
I should have known. I should have known.
Okay,
But that's
well,
appreciated.
if anybody has, I'll hang around if you want
Thank
to
you,
ask
thank
me.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it so much. Oh, you're welcome. And the question that Imam A.S. Muhammad was asking, some of that will be answered in our ending presentation. We're bringing Brother Marvin Muhammad back to the rostrum, and he's focusing on engagement. You answering the call, and membership, and maybe the PAC question for ACGG.
Assalamualaikum.
I want to say one more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
I passed out evaluations. It's very, alhamdulillah. Excuse me, please. Passing out the evaluations, and by all means, please do not leave without filling this out and leaving it on the back table for us. It will help us to go forward in our planning for our next steps and incorporate your feedback. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. There's not a lot more I need to say after our last presentation because he did cover lots of good information. The only thing that I want to say is that when it comes to engagement, what we have to really look at, as was mentioned a little bit earlier, is that we are the ones that are going to do the actual work. And we're going to be the ones that have to get out there and we have to get involved. My approach is one at a time. That doesn't take a long time. It's one at a time. If you can approach one person at a time and talk to them about the American Coalition with Government, if you can approach one person at a time that was exhibited today with the different people from the different communities and the different presenters, then you're doing the job. We have to develop coalitions, we have to develop allies, and we have to, and I'm going to use the term, well, I almost said arm, but I'm not going to say arm. We have to prepare ourselves to do certain things. We are going to set up a PAC, but one of the things that I got out of this meeting today, and one of the things that I'm going to mention to the steering committee, is that when we begin to look at these PACs, I think we're going to, in my opinion, we're going to encourage that we have more than one PAC. You know, the West Coast need a PAC, Southwest need a PAC, and y'all talk bad about Texas. All of y'all. I stayed in Texas, but some of my relatives did come to California too. In different areas, and they're going to do things. And the advice that we were given a few minutes ago is that yes, we have to start small, look at things, begin to groom people. One of the projects that we're getting ready to work at in Houston at one of the masjids, we're setting up a class for entrepreneurship and politics, and we're going to get children and we're going to teach them. We're going to give them a classroom session on that, and then after that, we're going to try to make them go. Well, not make them. We'll try to have them put themselves in business, things they want to do, and show them how to do it, and that type of thing, and give them some practical experience and getting organized and those type of things. And these are the type of things that we have to do, so that when it comes time to put people on the school board, and if you live in a city like Houston, Texas, you got about, I may say, 10 to 12 school districts just in the school limit, you know? And when you live in that type of situation, you say, man, that's big, but man, that's a lost opportunity, you know? So we have to look at these things, and in the city of Houston, I don't know if you heard about it, we do have a school board that is predominantly African American. It's a school district called North Forest Independent School District. and it's the school district that my children went to, and those people, the African Americans that were in those positions, they have done such a terrible job, it's pitiful. Several years ago, the lady who was the chairman of the board, she's using school district transportation to take her to the beauty shop. That sounds like a joke, don't it?
It does.
You know, when the comedians get up there, when we get in power, we're gonna use school transportation, you know, those type of things like that. So there's a lots of things we have to go in and that we have to correct, but at the same time we have to correct these things, we have to start to develop the children. And when we start to develop the children, we wanna look at all ages. We wanna look at from the time they walk and talk to the time they're most vulnerable to be taken out of this system, and people put them in a situation where they can't be usable or productive, you know. So we have to really look at this. And so there's a lot we have to do, but we need to meet, get our thoughts together. We have more than what we think we have. You know, if you come to Oakland and you see 25 people that are committed, you have a lot of people. If you come to the southwest part of the country and you find 20 people, that's a lot of people. And we have to realize that we use what we have in the most effective manner that we can. And we begin to influence. And let me end this with this. I was reading an article on languages, and I mentioned this in the talk that I gave in Houston. It was a Kudwa. And it was talking about the 4 most spoken languages in the world. And I looked at that and I realized that I had a great advantage over many people. Me coming from who I am and from the circumstances that I came from. The most spoken language in the world is Chinese. Makes sense?
Makes sense.
There's more Chinese than anybody else in the world. Number 2 was Spanish. Number 3 is English. And number 4 is Arabic. I jumped up in my mind and I clicked my heels and I said, God has blessed me. I speak English, I speak Spanish, and I sure can say "Assalamu alaikum." So when you get these type of advantages and God gives you certain things, it becomes your responsibility to utilize them and to bring about the change that needs to be done. Our leader, Imam W.D. Muhammad, gave a talk when he first came in office. He talked about us being Joseph's coat of many colors. And when he said that, I remember I was in my 20s then. I went and I looked in the mirror. And then I noticed something. I noticed that when the Vietnamese came to America and I had a job and I was around Vietnamese, they would really, really come to me to help them. And then I said, well, everybody always said I had these funny looking eyes. When I worked where I was working at, people would come to me not knowing my background and they would start speaking Spanish. When I became a Muslim, Muslims came up to me talking about kif halik in Arabic. Luckily I was able to say alhamdulillah wal anta. So when I saw that this Joseph coat of many colors and my circumstance is something that God gave me and I was able to relate to many people. As the gentleman said, things have changed now. And we were conditioned and made a certain way, not so that we can play with it, but so that we can go in and do what we have to do and take advantage of it. So what does that mean? Does that mean you have to stop listening to Bobby Blue Bland? No. I'm going to listen to him, man. I still like Sam Cooke. And as quiet as it kept, I like this last album R. Kelly came out with. So that's my identity that I have. But it doesn't mean that I can't identify, negotiate, conversate, and progress with others. So when you look at the American Coalition for Good Government, we took that name for a reason. We are Americans. Can I, you have that, yes. Yeah, and I'm gonna read just what the email was quoting, and I'm gonna end with this. And anyone who wants to join who's not a member, please check with Sister Mahassan or Brother Shabazz. But this is the last thing that I'm gonna say. And this is Imam W.D. Muhammad. And anyone can use this. He says, this country belongs to me too. I am one of the owners of the United States of America. And I don't care how small my share is, I am going to recognize my share. And I'm going to be responsible for my share. And I'm going to join the others, the little poor persons like me and the rich persons, the makers and the shakers. I'm a member in their club, whether they like it or not. Imam W.D. Muhammad, August 31st, 2008, Detroit, Michigan. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for being here and to let you know we've only began now and our job will continue. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
And that ends it, and we're nearly, just maybe about 5 minutes over. So consider that a victory here. Alhamdulillah. Yes. And I'm reminded that our next statement is simply around our next steps. And Brother Marvin has given us the number one of those next steps, and that's for us to become a member of the American Coalition for Good Government. This is your organization, potentially your PAC organization. And we want to receive the message. We have a saying in the Quran, and the man came from the far side of the city with a message, right? He says, I don't want no compensation from you. I just want to give you a message. Well, we thank you, Mr. Broussard, for bringing us that message today. And we thank all of those presenters who were here to contribute to that message. And we want to do something that messenger was trying to let the people know they had an option to do, and that was to act, to get involved, to sign on the dotted line. So we have paper or hard copy membership forms. We'd like to get these from you today, and we'd like to engage you at a later time. This is our first next steps for the payment of whatever category of membership you choose. We will be canvassing within the week. You will hear from us, and we will give you that option. There is also a membership, an electronic membership application online. Please go to the wonderful ACGG website, American Coalition for Good Government, and utilize that electronic application, and you can pay simply with your debit card or your credit card, and it'll be done. You'll be counted among those who want to work. And believe me, our agenda was cut out for us today. Imam Shabazz was saying, he said, this has been a remarkable day. I guarantee you, when we got up this morning, we only had hopes and dreams and prayers. And we find ourselves at the end of the day with every one of those hopes and dreams and prayers having been answered and delivered upon. We thank you for your patience and hanging in there with us for the long run. Some of you got here at the beginning of the day and you're still here now. And I see you still smiling. There is a flavor of victory in the air. We've got to register and measure up to the challenges that Brother Larry Broussard has detailed for us. We can't stop now. We can't let ourselves down, and we can't let those generations who we made promises to, we can't let them down. We have to use our influence and usher them a way in and stand behind them and make sure that they get settled and solid. So at this time, we can ask Imam Muhammad to come forward and give us a closing prayer. And we are going to need some help. I want to put this out in breaking things down and kind of tidying them up to leave them as our host so graciously presented us. And this was a blessing too. This is a full service community church. They have things we didn't think of asking for to make this event a success. We now know we could have been live streaming right from here. This gives us an opportunity to do serious online webinars and classes. And we've got to run. We've got to run with this. We've got to play catch up. So we need every one of you sitting here to initiate a long-term relationship with us, and let's get busy and get our share and do our work. And we thank you, Brother Marvin, again for coming the distance you've come and spending the time with us. And we thank all of those who helped. Mary, thank you. This is our director, Gamaliel Foundation. It's a international organization that trains community leaders I'm one of them. She brought me back into community development. I was just a retired teacher doing a little tutoring on the side, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, right? I was a Panther at 24. I knew how to lock and load. Okay? M16, AK-47, I could do it. Okay? I remember the night, unfortunately, that he met, I'm calling me now, Martin Luther King. Reverend Martin Luther King was assassinated. And my husband and I, to vent our frustration, we didn't hurt anybody, but we went out in East Palo Alto on the dikes and we did target practice. We weren't intending, the law didn't intend for me to go out like that, right? And I knew that at the time. But we had to vent those little emotions. We didn't want to hurt anybody, but it was a painful time. But I guarantee you, you and I have lived to see the day, to see our way out successfully. And with dignity, come on, let's do this. And let's leave our progeny with something to be proud of in us. Wanted to share with you, this next generation is going to carry it through. November 25th, my oldest granddaughter, who's 16, Imani, will be coming through San Francisco, and I'll be meeting her and my sister and I to send her off, embrace her and send her off. She is a youth ambassador, a global youth ambassador. She speaks fluent Chinese. She's been studying it for 2 years. She's elected in this program. She'll be flying to Indonesia for a 3-week study out of her senior year.